Hey friends, Dave here, and before today's episode about Mother 3, here are some things going on in Backlog Land. I recently did 2 guest appearances that are airing this week on the Retro Hangover podcast. The first one is a regular episode of their show about Shovel Knight, so that's a great episode, go check that one out. And also, the King of Games 1996 tournament rages on over on Retro Hangover, and this week's matchup was Super Mario 64 versus Panzer Dragoon 2 Zwei, and I was on that episode. I was one of the judges. So both of those, again, are on the Retro Hangover podcast. I'll put a link down in the show notes. You can go check that out. And as always, I'd like to say thank you to the people who help support the show over on Patreon. Wonderful people such as Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast crew, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Fakori, Jill, Jeff, formerly Jerf, Kieran, Soccer, ZNA, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Randall, Jake Martin, Jenny E., Kurt Mattis, and many more. You can join the fun over at patreon.com/realdavejackson and help support the show. And with all that being said, let's get on to Mother 3. Hello everybody, my name is Dave Jackson, and you're listening to Tales from the Backlog. This is a video games review podcast where each week I'm joined by a guest to bring a game out of the backlog, play it, and discuss. My guest today is a friend of the show. She's an award-winning reporter for IGN, and she always gives her regards to the next frog she meets. Welcome, Rebecca Valentine.
I appreciate that this is the introduction you wrote for me. It's clearly a Mother 3 reference, but also I am like frogs. Frogs are my thing.
Oh hell yeah!
So I'm delighted that this was the line you pulled for that. I do always give my regards to the next frog I meet.
Awesome. I'm glad my intuition paid off there. And yeah, today we are going to talk about Mother 3, which is an RPG developed by Brownie Brown and HAL Laboratory and published by Nintendo for the Game Boy Advance in 2006. Mother 3 famously only released in Japan and never officially localized, so we'll be talking about a fan translation by the Starman.net community. And if this is your first time listening to the show, first of all, thank you, welcome. Here's how spoilers work on this podcast and in this episode. We're going to deep dive Mother 3 as much as we can with no spoilers for a while, and then there will be a dedicated break, and then after that, spoiler time begins. If you want to know when that is, you can look down in the show notes for a timestamp for when that spoiler section begins. So, what is Mother 3? We have prepared some elevator pitches for everybody. I say Mother 3 is the forbidden sequel to Earthbound. Reb, what would you say?
This is a long elevator pitch. I should have done better for you. I think it's probably like the most perfect encapsulation of this like micro genre I've made up entirely for myself. I think it was like weird RPGs. I guess the actual elevator pitch is, if you like Undertale, you'll like this one.
That's fair.
I think it's even more Undertale than Earthbound is, actually.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. We allow multi-floor elevator rides for these pitches, so that's okay. Yeah. I played this emulated on my Steam Deck. It took me about 25 hours to play. Good experience emulating it on the old deck there. Where did you play this? How long do you think it took you?
I played this. I actually played it last year before you invited me on this episode. So I wasn't timing myself. I think 25 hours sounds about right. It was probably in that vicinity somewhere. I actually played it on an Analog Pocket with a cart that my husband bought on Etsy that had the fan translation on it.
Ooh,
so
nice.
it was like I think it was actually a DS cart and not a Game Boy Advance cart. It might have been a Game Boy Advance cart. But yeah, it would just pop it into the Analog Pocket and play it like a little Game Boy game. It was really great.
That's cool. The I don't have an Analog Pocket. They look super cool. But
yeah.
Steam Deck's also cool. I'm not, crying for help or anything like that. We had a good time there. So we always get the episode started by talking about our histories with the game, and then of course this is a part of a series. So we'll talk about our histories with the Mother series in general too. So when was the first time that you played Mother 3, and did you play the other Mother games before this?
So this was my first time playing it. What I was talking about last year, I'd never played it before that. I'm relatively new to the Mother series. I think I played Earthbound. Let's see, it was less than 10 years ago. I don't remember exactly when it is. I streamed it actually. So it is somewhere in there. I just streamed it on Twitch. I played it via some emulator or whatever. It just felt like a game that I had always. Again, I mentioned Undertale up top. I'm sure I'm going to talk about it before, but there's there's this whole micro genre I have in my brain of Undertale-like games. Undertale, Moon, Contact, Earthbound, these games with like this sort of 2D top-down RPG structure where you're playing usually as a very, very young kid and wandering around this like sort of weird world with a lot of silly humor, but also like deep emotional, heartfelt themes. So Earthbound always felt like a blind spot for me. I played it, I loved it, and then I kind of put it away and didn't really think about it too much for a while. But then I got on a weird kick last year where I played Mother 1 on Nintendo Switch Online.
Okay.
Which, by the way, I don't like super recommend. It's aggressively fine. Earthbound's a way better game in every possible way. But after playing Mother 1, I was just craving something more Earthboundy. And my husband had bought that Mother 3 cart a long time ago. And so I pulled it out and fell in love. Nice.
Yeah, I guess if you're craving something more Earthboundy, there's no better place than staying within the series, right?
Yeah.
And you wrote something here about the Mother's Cookbook. Tell me a little bit about that, because I never heard of that before.
Yeah, so I dabble in adventures in video game food. I was going on this sort of adventure several years ago where I was cooking every recipe in various video game cookbooks. So I did the World of Warcraft cookbook, I did the Elder Scrolls cookbook, and then the third one I did was the Mother's Cookbook, which is by Chef Brian Connor, and it is recipes inspired by and from mainly Earthbound, but it has some Mother 3 recipes in there as well. And when I worked through this cookbook, I had played Earthbound already, but I had not played Mother 3, and it has several recipes in there that are inspired by Mother 3. And so I got it's written in the style of a mother who is, writing down her recipes that she makes for her kid, like Nessa's mom. And the Mother 3 section, she's talking about getting recipes from another woman, another mother just like her, who lives in a place called Tazmily. And I now understand a little bit more about the emotional impact of that.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Interesting. So maybe I'll try to get that recipe for a skip sandwich from you at some point during or after the recording.
It's
here.
in there. It's in there.
Yeah. Cool. This is my first time playing Mother 3 as well. I played Earthbound for the first time in like late 2021, early 2022. And if anyone's interested, that is episode 26 of this podcast is about Earthbound. It is with Keith from Main Quest Podcast. So go check that out if you want more from this series. And then I had tried Mother 3 on iOS emulators for Game Boy Advance. Shout out to GBA for iOS before the App Store allowed emulators. This whole fucking process to get an emulator on my phone. I tried Mother 3. It doesn't work because the rhythm mechanic doesn't work with a touchscreen. So I didn't get far. I also just can't focus playing RPGs on my phone. I have really bad attention span for stuff like that. But when 2024 started, we started our backlog resolutions challenge in our Discord server, and I made sure to put Mother 3 on that list. So I finally got it done, and shout out to everyone in that challenge who's making dents in the old backlog. So, opening thoughts about Mother 3 before we dive in proper. I had wondered a little bit before I started this about something that I'm terming forbidden fruit syndrome, which is these games that are super rare or really hard to get a hold of or not on modern consoles or not translated or all of the above, and how like I personally play these games up so much in my head that when I play them, they can't really meet the expectations I had played up. It happened with Suikoden 2, another one of those where I played and I was like, this is okay. Everyone talks about it, and I thought it was okay. Mother 3, I came out of thinking is really good. I really enjoyed my time with it. The thing that I really enjoyed the most was not really the plot of Mother 3, but more the characters and situations, and of course the emotional core in it. I also didn't think that it was as much of a mechanical improvement over Earthbound as I would have hoped, given that it came out 12 years later or something like that, but they had a really hard time developing it. So I'm not sure what I really expected. It is better from a mechanical perspective, I'll say, than Earthbound, but it's not 12 years later better, if that makes sense. I still had a good time with it though. So there's going to be some things we talk about that I didn't love about it, but there is a lot that I did really, really enjoy. What would you say as some quick opening thoughts at the top here?
I think I liked it more than you, which actually surprises me because I read through these notes and I think your later writing and understanding of it, I don't know. It seems like from some of the other things you wrote, there were a lot of you loved all the most important parts of it. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I actually like the plot a lot. I think along with all the other things you said, I kind of like how strangely structured it is for a video game. I am not used to it's got this sort of like episodic chapter structure to it. The opening chapters of the game are a little, I don't think unsettling is the right word, but it sort of jumps around from different character perspectives. There's a bunch of time skips. My feeling going into it was that it took me a while to understand fundamentally what and who this game was about in a good way. I really enjoyed the sort of questioning of what was actually going on here and who I was supposed to care about, and where everything was going, because it didn't feel like it felt like Earthbound spiritually, but it did not feel like Earthbound structurally. And I really, really appreciated that. I do agree with you that mechanically, it's not a huge improvement over Earthbound, but I also don't think Earthbound really needed improving upon. I think in terms of simple RPG systems, it's one of the best out there. We'll talk about it later. I love the rolling HP meters. I love the auto battle finishes when you're a high enough level. I think more games should do that stuff. I think the rhythm elements added a really interesting dimension to it, even though I'm actually not quite sure they were working perfectly on the Analog Pocket, but I can't, it is weird. I couldn't tell if it was just the game being tricky or if I was bad at rhythm or if it was something with the analog. Anyway, I loved it. It's this beautiful story about grief and coming of age and man versus nature. There's so much going on in it. I love the cast. I don't know. Maybe I love it more than Earthbound. I don't know. I might.
Yeah, I do like this more than Earthbound as a total product. But I was kind of comparing back and forth. I like the plot and the driving force in the plot in Earthbound a lot. And what you said intrigued you about how you were going through and you weren't quite sure why things are happening and you wanted to find that out. I was a little bit let down by that same thing. I wanted to know, why am I here? Why are these things happening? And this game takes a while to give you that. But yeah. I think you also said it right that the most important thing about this game, in my opinion, is that emotional core of it. And I think that is really, really good in here. So I think you said I liked the most important part, and I agree with that.
Yeah, I think, Earthbound opens with a bee descending from the sky to tell you that, you have a mission to save the world and you are the chosen child, and there's a prophecy and stuff. And Mother 3, we'll get into the trappings of the plot, but it starts with just people having problems and having conflicts. And there is ultimately a villain or two running around that you have to stop and thwart. But yeah, it takes a very roundabout and I don't know. It takes a more complex road to get there, and I think the payoff ends up being really, really good. But I imagine it can be disorienting if you're not sure what to expect.
Yeah, for sure. So let's put a pin in this. Let's listen to a bit of music from Mother 3. No problem at all.
Yes.
And when we come back, we will kind of set up what is going on at the beginning of the story. Mother 3 has a writing credit to Shigesato Itoi, the creator of the series. And so the game starts out at the beginning. You're introduced to the core family, the nuclear family, and you can, just like Earthbound, input everybody's name. The canon names are Lucas, who's the main character, otherwise known from the Super Smash Bros. Series for a lot of people. Lucas's older brother is named Klaus. Father is named Flint. Mother is named Hinawa. And the dog is named Boney. You can also put in your favorite food and your favorite thing. And another recommendation, just like I said in the Earthbound episode, please be like earnest and nice about what you put in for your favorite food or favorite thing, or else the game's going to get kind of weird for you at some certain points.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think the game starts out really setting a tone with the music during this like enter your name screen, and then the little tiny voice lines when you hit enter. It just kind of like puts you right in the mood. Like what this game's tone is at the beginning. I love that.
I think one of my favorite things about Mother 3 is that what did you say? Was it 12 years from Earthbound? Is that right?
I think Earthbound was 94. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so long. Anyway, it was a long period of time. I think in some ways it was a really big upgrade and a jump. I think in other ways it was not a very big upgrade and a jump. But they captured this fan localization, I cannot praise enough, really captured the spirit of Earthbound and the humor and the style so well, and it pairs so beautifully with the animations and the little character quirks and the little visual style things. There's just so many little touches all over this game that are funny or clever or heartfelt, and it all works together tonally so well for me at every single stage.
Yeah, let's talk about that translation just for a second. So I don't know about you, but like, I've had mixed experiences with fan translations in the past. You know, you don't know who's doing it. You don't know how qualified they are to do it. And so when I started this, I was kind of like, okay, is this going to be well done? Or is it going to be like they are the people who did it? Their localization skills might not be great, but they finished the project. Completely unfounded worries about this fan translation. It is wonderful. So want to shout out the person who spearheaded the translation, Clyde, quote, Tomato Mandolin, who they themselves are a professional localizer. They worked on Kingdom Hearts 2, some Dragon Ball stuff, and then they had a lot of other people that helped out that they vetted to be a part of the project. So in case anyone out there is wondering, like, it's a fan translation, is it good? Yes, 100%. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I had actually never played a fan translation of anything before. I haven't delved enough into the catalogs of games that have not made it west to really ever have that pleasure. But I think exactly because of what you said, you know, there's a wariness about that. Like, I don't know if I'm getting something that is accurate. I don't need it to be a literal translation, but I do want it to be accurate to the original author's intent. And right. I guess I can't say for sure because we're never going to hear what Itoi, we're never going to hear what all the developers think of this. They'll never tell us, but spiritually, like I said, it feels so wonderfully close to Earthbound and so reverential to what the game visually appears to be doing and what I recall Earthbound doing that it came so highly recommended, and I highly recommend it as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So back to the beginning of the story. We have Lucas, Klaus, and Hinawa, again, younger brother, older brother, and mother, respectively. They're visiting their grandpa on the mountain, while Flint, the father, again, is staying home and working on the farm. And on the day that they are supposed to go home by walking through the forest, a UFO or something is starting to fly over. It drops these weird people in pig masks and these robots that are shooting flames all over the place, and it causes a forest fire. And during this early section, you play as Flint, who is trying to help the villagers who are caught in the forest. And also, that is the same forest that the family is supposed to be traveling through to get home. So that is the inciting event. It is like the first 10 minutes of the game.
It barely does justice to anything that happens in this game at all.
I know. But
you can't go further because what happens after that point immediately changes the tone.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to put a pin in like actual plot points for now until the spoiler section. But there are still some things we can talk about with the story, things that we find interesting about what this game's story is doing. You mentioned in your opening thoughts that you enjoyed how this game kind of jumps around from point of view characters. And like the first 3 to 4 chapters, I don't remember how many exactly, you're a different main character every single time. And then, so that introduces you to them. And then the back half of the game, everyone joins up together. You have a classic JRPG traveling party. And after that, but you've gotten time to get to know everyone in the party as their own character with their own backstories and things, which is an interesting way to go about teaching you about people before they join your party. Normally, like, people just kind of hop on the wagon as you go through the game.
Yeah.
But not here.
And I think this is especially interesting because, again, avoiding spoilers, but, you know, you get, I think a typical expectation for a game like this, and this happens, I believe, if I remember right, in Earthbound as well, you start off by naming your party. So you would theoretically name the 4 characters that you're going to be spending the majority of the game with, but it's not quite what happens here. Like you will play as several of these people, and several of them are in the main party, but we're missing some people. We haven't even met a couple of the core characters yet, but this focus on this group of people, like, you know, we talked about this having a very strong emotional core. This is the emotional core right here, and that's who you're introduced to first. And so getting that sort of perspective shift of like what's truly important in this game and who we need to focus on, and why we need to care about them, I think matters a lot. And the game kind of letting you open with this group of people in this fairly small setting before you get introduced to the real meat of what's going to be happening, is a really interesting choice that I think you don't normally see.
Yeah. And it's interesting that a lot of the cast of people that join your party are not, again, like Earthbound and Mother, the whole series, I guess, is like non-traditional as far as RPGs go. Like, you're not gathering up, a warrior and a wizard and stuff like that. Right. You're gathering up a lot of like other kids. Like Lucas is a child, a young child, and you're gathering up another child. You have your dog, you have your dad. At the beginning, you name your dad, your mom, your older brother, and your dog. And then there is another person who joins your party who is a young adult, we'll say, or a teenager. I wasn't quite sure how old Duster is.
Oh, Duster. I think Kumatora is a teenager, isn't she?
I think so, yeah.
I think Duster's supposed to be an adult. Like a young, like I mentally placed him in like his 20s, like late 20s maybe.
Okay, yeah. So kind of like a group of misfit characters that you gather up as you go, and then like a couple of animals that you can play as and stuff. It's an interesting cast. Yeah,
and I don't know. Are we getting too far off the path? I want to talk about that main cast. Maybe I'll save this bit, but I think there is Earthbound. You mentioned Lucas being a very young child, and Earthbound again has this core 4 group of kids who are all very young children. And so much of what makes Earthbound really powerful is that it reminds you repeatedly that these are very young children in a world full of deeply incompetent adults. But you know, we put our burdens on the next generation. And so that's what we do. And Mother 3, I'll save it for the spoilers section, but I think Mother 3 takes a slightly different look at that. It is not opposed to that philosophy in any way, shape, or form. Like, we are still putting our burdens disproportionately on people who do not deserve to have those burdens put upon them. But it really like puts a different kind of lens over, you know, how children are forced to shoulder our responsibilities and how we pass things off to society's outcasts. And I think it's really fascinating. I love this cast.
Yeah. Yeah. And your whole group are not children, but the main character is a child. Yes. And that doesn't change. I mean, there are some time jumps, but it's not like you're jumping 10 years into the future or anything like that. Like, you're a child for the entire time. And this is a game where some serious and heavy things happen around that child. And you're kind of, one of the things that I like about how this story handles that is they never seem to lose sight of the fact that he is a child and he reacts to things the way that a child would, instead of Lucas is a child, but he doesn't act like one. He acts like he's 25 years old or something like that. I did not get that sense at all from this, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, there's some things that happen to him fairly early on in the game that would, you know, make any child have an emotional response of some kind. And a lot of adults that you talk to who have known you throughout this will remark, oh, it's Lucas the crybaby. Oh, he's crying all the time. Why is he always crying? And Like, he's a child, but the impression you, the player, walk away with is, oh, these adults are jerks. Like, why are you talking to this kid like this? Of course he cries all the time. I would too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a segue to talk about the setting and like the people in this town of Tazmily, which is where not most, but a lot of the game takes place in and around the village. It is definitely the place you'll visit the most throughout the game. So the village of Tazmily is set up as this really sleepy, innocent place where people are nice to each other, supposedly, although, you know, what you just said is absolutely true. Not everyone's nice to Lucas all the time. There's no money in the town. People just give each other what they need. Like at the beginning, if you go in the store, you can just take whatever you need. They're cool. They just, hey, have it, whatever. And then one of the key evolving storylines that I really enjoyed about this game is the slow corruption of this place by outside forces. And you can, I think, read this in a couple of different ways, but I enjoyed this as like a slow thing that you see the process of happening, is this sleepy, idyllic place being turned into, you know, capitalist hell world. Yeah,
it's really good. And you talk about Tazmily being corrupted over a period of time. And I do kind of want to again reiterate that this is the story's timeline is, it's very interesting structurally what they do with this, but they do actually have multiple, not giant, but they do have multiple time skips. So it's not just that you're seeing it over the course of like a few days or a week or like a year. You're seeing it evolve very dramatically as time passes, and you're seeing characters change as these outside forces come in and shift them. And I think the way when you move to a new chapter at certain points, there's this moment of, oh no, what's happened to Tazmily now? I need to go see, where are these characters? What has happened to them in this period? And that being able to watch things, and even the mechanical things, like you talk about, being able to get certain items for free in the shop. Is that always going to be the case? Like, am I still going to be able to go back there and get them for free? I don't know. Are there areas with treasure chests that I might lose access to later, or that I might gain access to? Who can say? It's really fun mechanically, but it also, I think, does a really good job of demonstrating both the ways in which outside forces corrupt this very sleepy little town, but also, as you kind of alluded to, the ways in which the call was always coming from inside the house, right? Like it was our hearts that were always corrupt, and we are the ones who made the choices that set us on this path, even if we were just given a little nudge by outside forces.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you touched on something there that is a big compliment that I can give to RPGs of this type, which is I wanted to talk to everybody in town every chance something changed.
Every time.
And that is not always the case. Even in my favorite RPGs like this, I don't always want to talk to everybody in town. A lot of times they have nothing interesting to say. But in this game, I'm
playing Dragon's Dogma 2 right now. I don't care about anything any of these people has to say. It's completely pointless to me. But you're spot on.
Yeah, things change in the town and in the world, and people have not only do they have interesting things to say from like a dialogue writing perspective, but they have interesting things to say about what's going on with the place that they live. And maybe changes that are happening. So big credit to the writers, the localizers, of course, for, just like Earthbound, making this a game that I wanted to talk to everybody. Another reason to talk to everybody is that this is a very funny and charming game.
Gosh. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and again, like, I cannot compliment this localization enough. It's done. They did such a good job. If you thought Earthbound was funny, Mother 3 is also funny, and it complements the animations and the characters and the plot so well that the only conclusion I can come to is they did a really good job, and they didn't just insert a bunch of jokes for no reason. Like, it's a very funny game. All I could think of a second ago was the scene of Boney dressing up in human clothes. It's
walking
ridiculous.
On 2 legs. Yeah.
Walking on 2 legs and fooling people or not. It's, oh my gosh, it's great. There's all sorts of like just weird little gags. Even the item descriptions are great. Earthbound also again had this, but all of the little, you could check different items or check different things or just talk, like you said, talk to people repeatedly. And, it's occasionally satirical, adults are incompetent, people are a mess, but also people can have good deep inside their hearts if you look for it. People are fallible and are constantly doing, ridiculous slapstick routines because we're all just struggling in this world, and silly things happen to us.
Yeah, that bit you're talking about where Boney is acting like a person wearing people clothes, standing on two legs, and you have an exchange with some bouncers outside of a place, and you just have this back and forth about whether he's a dog or not, because they have a clear no dogs policy in the club. And it's just really, really funny. And it's a credit. I always give credit to the RGG Yakuza localizers
for
good. their work making those games funny. And so I got to give these people credit too on Mother 3, because it's got to be so hard, again, to translate humor in another language into another language in a way that not only makes sense, but also makes sense for people from that culture. So it's really well done. I think that there is like a charm to Mother 3 also, that charm is something that works on some people and doesn't work on others. It's hard to say that like, this is charming to me, it'll be charming to you. But like, I feel pretty strongly that this is one of those games that you can play and you can just feel like this intense love radiating from the people who made it. And there's like a really clear, charming quality to the whole thing. The humor plays into that too.
It's earnest.
Yeah.
I think the whole series is really earnest. It's really easy to just sort of flippantly say, oh, well, it boils down to being a story about, love conquering all and friendship and joy and peace and whatever. And it is maybe like if you try to describe the plot to people in sort of basic terms, it does end up sort of being a very cheesy moral, right? But it's played out in such a heartfelt and sincere, but also playful, but also loving, but also satirical way that it just works. I don't know. I love all of I love the way this is written, and I love the way it is conveyed.
Yeah, absolutely. There is something we want to talk about some of the content in Mother 3. Just as we got done saying that it's, earnest and lovingly made and things like that, there is one particular set of characters in Mother 3 that arises all sorts of, let's say, like inarguably problematic things about them.
Yeah.
And the first thing about that is the second half of their name is a slur that the Romani people don't like. So there is that. I don't want to make comments about intent or anything like that. I mean, they're the ones who put it in the game. I didn't read how the Japanese works or anything like that. But the other interesting thing about these characters is that they have male physiques, but they are all dressed as women, at the very least dressed as women. Yeah. And it's never clear exactly what their identity is supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, their writing in the localization that we played is coded in a very feminine way, which could mean literally anything.
Yeah, I did not know if this was if these are transgender characters, if these are drag characters. They don't say. You're just kind of left to, I don't know, take it however you take it. From what I read, the Japanese translation uses both male and female pronouns for them.
Interesting.
Again, instead of using, and I don't remember what they did in Mother 3, I should have checked, but I don't think they use the non-binary pronoun they, which...
Yeah. It's also really hard to say, this is it's not an old game, but it is some years older, and our cultures have become more conscious of things. So you could say they knew and were insensitive and terrible. You could also say maybe they just were not aware of the best way to handle this. And that it's hard to know. It's hard to know what was going on here intention wise.
Right. I don't know if they're supposed to be trans, if they're in drag, if they're genderless, non-binary, whatever. The game doesn't tell you. All you have is the way they look and the way they talk. And there is definitely something there. There is an intent of some kind, but we just, we'll probably never know unless there's some interview with Itoi about them in Japanese somewhere. I don't know. These characters are like important in the story. They're very important, and you meet lots of them throughout the journey. And there are some scenes with them that are really like tender and heartfelt and amazing. And there are some scenes with them where I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, that better not be what I think it was. There's a scene in like a hot spring with Lucas where I was like, I had to go look up, like, did what I think happened there actually just happen? And I'm just, people on Reddit answering the question of how they interpret it. But there's some weird stuff going on with these characters too, that, just makes you wonder, like, what are they doing with these characters?
Yeah, I very much agree that it's all over the place. I think the scene that you just mentioned is really damning and upsetting. Like, it's very weird. There have been a lot of theories as to why this game has never been brought over to the West. This content is one of multiple theories. I think there are many things you could do to make this game better. I think you could change the name of this group of people, for instance, to no longer include a slur, and that would be a very easy fix for that problem. There's plenty of puns on magic you could come up with. I think there's some things that are a little more complicated. Like, I think that hot springs scene, I was trying to think how you edit that out of the game, and you fundamentally have to change the game, because that scene is where Lucas gains a very specific ability that he needs to proceed. And you would actively have to like redevelop that entire scene. And I think they should, but that depending on where you're sitting, that's an amount of work that they might not be able to do or might not have the rights to do. But it does get confusing. Again, we can't ascribe intent without knowing, but apart from the bits we've just mentioned, there are a lot of great scenes with these characters. They're almost like these sort of wise, like, spiritual guides to Lucas. They are portrayed as brave and kind and a little silly. Sometimes it feels like they're maybe being played off as a joke. Sometimes it feels like they're not being played off as a joke, and they're genuinely just funny characters that you would want to be around. And it's just so all over the place. I do think the game ends up coming away with them as these very heroic and lovable people who are ultimately there to do the right thing. And I think there's a good reading of Mother 3 that you can do. And again, I want to talk about more of this later, but there's a good reading of Mother 3 you can do about the ways in which it portrays the people who live on the fringes of society, the people who are marginalized, the people who society otherwise looks down upon, as the people who ultimately have to shoulder the burdens for humanity's worst sins. But because they are brave and kind and good and look out for each other, they end up succeeding. And I think there's a reading of that where this group of people is included in a positive way. But then you have that hot spring scene, and I'm like, what are we doing here, people?
Yeah, so you're right. Basically, everything else about their actions in the story is brave and kind and heroic and all of these really positive things. They're funny. They're, really helpful, all of the above. And then you have this hot spring scene, which is ambiguous at the very best, whether something predatory is happening. If they were to localize this or do something like that, they would have to, at the very least, acknowledge and like publicly say what's going on in that scene or what's going on with these characters, and renaming them as something that, that's as easy as just changing the name. They can do that. I mean, I changed the names of the characters too in the game. So not these characters, but the main characters, you can change their names. So yeah, they could do that. But it is something worth bringing up when we're talking about like this charm and the writing and how wonderful all the characters are. There are these characters in here that will give pause to a lot of people playing it at the very least. But there is an overall tone to the rest of the game and the rest of the series that makes me want to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's just like there's a couple things like that hot spring scene where I'm like seriously, what the fuck just happened there? Like, I need an official answer for what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's one of the many. I mean, there's so many reasons I would like them to localize this in an official capacity, but this is one of them because I want to believe that the people who made this game are thoughtful, kind people who had a thoughtful, kind idea in mind, and for whatever cultural or upbringing or just what was going on at the time reasons, made some mistakes. Like the name is not appropriate. And also in 2012, when this came out, I didn't know that information. And I think maybe a lot of people didn't. And so like that's maybe one that you could say, well, you want to give them an opportunity to do better. And that's what I would like. I would like them to be given the opportunity to, even if they're not going to come out and make a statement about it, to at least release a version of this that has a little more care put into it around these characters and around the communities of people who would otherwise really love this game, but look at that and go, oh no, I am not welcome here.
Right.
Because I think that is antithetical to what the series wants to stand for, and I want them to prove me right on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it is worth noting again, this game began development in 1994, like right after Earthbound came out, and did not release until 2006. And a lot's changed since 1994.
I'm sorry, I said 2012. 2006, yeah. I definitely had no idea what was going on in 2006.
Yeah, a lot has changed since 2006, since 1994, but it is worth bringing up if you're going to play this game. This is something you're going to see. And again, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt because basically everything else about the game is, heartfelt and caring and wonderful from that perspective. It's just, kind of weird to see that. So not to belabor that too long, but we did have to bring that up and talk about it. So we'll listen to a bit more music. We'll come back and talk about how this game looks and sounds. Visuals in Mother 3, the art is credited to Nobuhiro Imagawa, and the big thing that sticks out to me about Mother 3 is that this is very bright and very colorful and very emotive pixel art. Like a lot of Game Boy Advance games, the Game Boy Advance was a famously dark system, so a lot of them are very bright games if you play them on modern screens. Same thing here, and the biggest thing that I want to shout out about the way it looks is we already talked about the animations, but I would like to mention that again because they're wonderful. They convey so much emotion and character for whoever's doing them. And character designs are awesome. Like, I feel like this is one of those games where you don't meet anyone who looks the same as anyone else in the game. Everyone's unique.
There might be one or two, but everyone feels very themselves.
Yeah. But it ends up being a very pleasant game. I mean, I love pixel art. Especially Game Boy Advance era pixel art is wonderful to me, will never get old. So this looks great. And it was kind of always a joy to go into a new place and see what messed up townspeople you see and or goofy looking townspeople and what enemies you'll find too, because the enemies you fight are all really entertaining to see the designs.
Yeah, I think it benefits from the small screen too. I mean, I don't know what your experience was like, but in the Analog Pocket, like having that the small screen that was not quite what it was designed for, but pretty close. And then I had the benefit of a backlight. Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
And it really pops on that small screen with the backlight. Like it feels like a game of its era in the best possible way. Like when I think back and I imagine what was it like to play a game on the Game Boy Advance, I'll think of something and then I might pull that game up again and look at it and I'm like, oh wait, this is worse than I remembered. But Mother 3 doesn't feel like that. Mother 3 feels like what like the good things that I remember playing on Game Boy Advance, and that's nice.
Right. This game released like 2 years after the DS came out, and so you would have had, even on a Game Boy Advance, if you had the SP, you would have had a backlight. But always weird going back to the original Game Boy Advance and being like, it is so dark. Like, let me find the most perfect lighting in my house to play this.
You get those little worm lights that you plug in and they like squiggle up and hang over your Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, we of the generation that had the original Game Boy Advance, we made the worm light creators some money for sure.
Oh, we did, yeah.
This game also has those cool spacey, wacy lava lamp backgrounds from Earthbound during combat.
Oh, yeah.
Love those. So good to shout those out.
Yeah, really unique too, because because so many RPGs, especially around this era, were doing battles where you could see your party, right?
Yeah.
Like that was kind of becoming the norm, was to be able to in some way see your party. And this is going back to a more Dragon Quest style that Earthbound was also using, where you're looking front on at whatever the enemy is and looking at their little sprite or whatever, and then you just have your party's boxes in front of you. It feels old school and retro. I don't remember selecting this in the menu of Mother 3. Do you remember this? In Earthbound, you choose your menu colors, but it's all like flavors of ice cream.
Yep. I don't remember if it's ice cream
well?
flavors, but you still get to pick the color. Yeah.
It's like mint, strawberry, things like that. I
think so.
I remember being ice cream flavors in Earthbound. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, I think I played Mother 3 with, and I don't know what fruit this goes on to, maybe grape with purple menus.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Music in Mother 3 is credited to Shogo Sakai, and this is a wild soundtrack. Just straight up. I love this so much. It's one of my favorite things about the game. Same with Earthbound, but I looked it up earlier. I spent today listening to the YouTube playlist of the soundtrack. There are almost 400 tracks in this soundtrack. Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of them are the there's a track for every vocalization in the game also.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And every little sting, like when you get into a random battle, the do-do-do-do-do, like that.
Yeah. And
then also when you use the thing to isolate the rhythm of the battle songs, those all have their own tracks too. But
interesting.
Let's say there's 50 of those. There's still like 350 songs on this soundtrack. It's wildly eclectic.
Yeah. And they, we could talk about this whenever, I guess, but the music itself, it again, I keep bringing up Earthbound, and I apologize, but Earthbound very much set so much of the tone for this game. Earthbound was this game about Americana, as viewed through the lens of these Japanese developers, but this kind of quintessential Americana where you're this little boy with a baseball bat and a baseball cap going off on an adventure. And so the music styling, so much of them, we're trying to lean into this sort of retro rock vibe. Like you get the feeling of sitting in a little diner, eating your burger and your fries and your milkshake with your baseball bat. And Mother 3 is a different vibe from that, but a lot of the music stylings carried over, and so it's got kind of that, like, I don't know, I'm not like an oldies music expert, but I feel like I'm sitting in a diner when I listen to this music. Like it's got the oldies radio station tones to it. They actually borrowed, I think, from a bunch of they were inspired a little too closely, maybe, by some actual music tracks, which is another reason people have suggested this might be being kept from Switch Online, though I believe it's out in Japan now, so I don't know that that's the reason necessarily.
Yeah, there is one song that borrows like the guitar riff from Beat It by Michael Jackson. There's another song that is very, very similar to the old Batman theme song, and the song title is related to bats also. So
that's funny.
Yeah. But that rock vibe is there, especially in the combat music. That old school Chuck Berry-esque like blues rock. 12 or 8 bar blues type rock. A lot of that. There is not a like straight up rip of Johnny B. Good like there was in Earthbound, but
oh my gosh.
There's a bunch of songs that sound similar to that style. And as a bass guitar player, I love the very prominent bass in the
it's
those
great.
songs.
It's
love
so
those.
Good.
Every enemy has different music too, which plays into the gameplay, but also keeps the music fresh as you're playing. Some of my favorite RPGs, Final Fantasy VI, you hear the same battle track for most of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Earthbound has dozens of combat songs, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. And we can talk about the gameplay here in a second, but because the game has a battle gameplay mechanic based on understanding the rhythm to each song, one of the highlights of playing this for me is entering a battle and hearing a music and being like, oh, this is one of the ones I can do. Yeah. Yep. Or going like, oh no, I suck at this one.
Yeah. Yeah, just to go into battle and be like, oh, this is the I can do that one. Yeah, for sure.
Well, they play with it too, because there's some there's a lot of ones that are just like pretty basic tempos, but there's some where the tempo actively increases and then decreases throughout the song, and you're just supposed to know what's going on.
Yeah, a bunch of the tracks, like if you look at the YouTube playlist, there's like, we have this combat track and then this variation of that combat track and then this upgraded variation of those combat tracks. So there's a lot going on. One of the other things I love about this soundtrack is that this is full of like very recognizable themes for different places and then variations on those themes. Lots and lots of leitmotif throughout the game.
Love that, yeah.
Listening to the soundtrack, you'll hear the same 4 or 5 melodies used and reused, like seriously dozens of times each for different situations. And this game is just wonderful about that. Things relating to family, things relating to the villains, things relating to locations. It's all like, this is like expert stuff.
Yeah. It's really, I have no intelligent comment on this, but as a player who has a passing knowledge of music, you know, you do pick up on it and you pick up on the emotions being evoked. I remember a specific point in the game where the villain theme was playing in a very particular way around a certain character, and like the dawning realization before any dialogue had been said that, oh, I understand what's going on here. It was really good.
Yep, there's a lot of that. There is one of the main themes that's like this nice comforting song is reused as like a lullaby style, and it's called like the Mother 3 Love Theme is the title of the song. So it's really, really well done here in this soundtrack. It's awesome. And of course, if you love Earthbound, this soundtrack is full of those those soundtracks, those sound effects throughout, which is great. And there's a bunch of other great sound effects in the game too. I particularly love when you're fighting and you hit an enemy. Again, we have like this rock, these blues songs going on, and you'll get like a little guitar lick when you hit an enemy. And like, yeah, it's wonderful. I love it so much. I also love the Hot Springs music. Just want to give a quick shout out to like the warm, comforting feeling of you go to a hot spring, the music slows down, it gets much warmer. It's great. Yeah. Love it.
It brings back a couple themes from Earthbound as well. So people who are missing Earthbound, and you'll hear a few little familiar tracks sprinkled in there that will remind you of different days.
Yeah. See, we're mentioning Earthbound a lot, but the game references Earthbound a lot too. So I don't personally feel bad.
It is a direct sequel. I mean, you're not going to find out why, where, how, and what until we'll get to it. But it is actually a direct sequel. And I do think it's worth saying you don't need to have played Earthbound to enjoy Mother 3. I think the majority of the game stands on its own pretty well. There are moments in this game that will have a much harder emotional impact if you did.
Yeah, 100% agree. So let's talk about the gameplay in Mother 3. It is a top-down RPG, like we said before. You walk around, you talk to people, you interact with stuff. It's one of those games where if you try to interact with something that there's nothing to interact with, you'll get a message that comes up that says, no problem here.
No problem here. That's been integrated into my actual vocabulary. I will just say no problem here, sort of casually. And nobody clocks it. Nobody has any idea what I'm saying.
Okay. I will. I'll pick up on it if it happens. No problem here.
No problem
here. Just like Earthbound, you can see enemies on the screen and you can run around them. You can try to evade them and like rush past, get to another screen. You can try to sneak up on them from behind to get a free turn in combat. This can also happen to you if you're not careful. And getting a free turn is important because this is turn-based combat and it is fairly difficult turn-based combat. For a game that is as cute and charming and loving as it is from a story perspective, it can be quite difficult.
Yeah, healing items can, in certain areas of the game, be pretty scarce. You do have the equivalent of magic with your PSI abilities. Some characters can do healing, but you also have, magic points that will run out, and you have a limited amount of items to restore those. And sometimes you can find a magic butterfly, but you better be lucky. And there's a lot of moments in this game where you end up in a tight spot, and I'm trying to decide if I think it's harder than Earthbound. I think parts of it might be.
I think Earthbound was harder because there is that rhythm thing that just like lets you do a little extra damage in this game. I think
it is very much a bonus mechanic. You don't have to engage with it.
Yeah, it does feel like a bonus, but some of the fights, especially boss fights, can be really, really difficult. So like if you can get, 25 extra damage, you need that because maybe it's going to take one fewer turn to kill the boss at the end of it.
Yeah. We should actually explain what that is.
Let's talk about the rhythm system. So if you do a standard attack, so like not magic, not using an item, nothing like that, if you just hit attack, you will go hit the enemy. But each combat song has a beat that you can tap the attack button along to, and you'll know what's happening. You'll know if it's hitting it because you'll get this nice spinning animation that goes on when you're doing it. And if you tap along with the beat, and not like the quarter note beat, it's like the actual rhythm of the song that you have to learn. If you do that, then you will keep getting more and more hits and do extra damage. And the damage you do decreases, but then will go back up. So if you're able to get, 10 hits or something like that, you'll do quite a bit of extra damage. This is super helpful. And one of the things I don't love about this system is that it takes way too long before you can reliably use it throughout the game. Because you can't hear unless you're really good at music. And I'm decent, but I'm not that good. You get a skill that will isolate the beat for you. And then you can be like, okay, it's da, 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 like that. But you don't get that skill for a long time. And there's one character that has the skill and they're not in your party for most of the first half of the game. And so, there was a lot of like boss fights kind of midway through the game that were really difficult. And I really wished I could use this and I couldn't. So that sucked. But once you are able to use this is a lot of fun. I love this.
So I have a confession. I never used the skill. I might have used it like one time.
Ooh, okay.
But I didn't know until you just said that it's not just the quarter note beats.
Oh, okay.
So I thought I was just bad this whole time. I did manage to rack up some high combos on songs where it is just a steady beat. Because there are some easier ones like that. But at a certain point in the game, I was never able to get higher than like 5 or 6 in a row just because I didn't understand what was happening. It does not. I think this needs a better tutorial. Like if they ever did localize this, I would like to see them add a better tutorial and give you, I don't know. They couldn't give you access to that ability and that character earlier on without changing the story, but maybe giving you like a tutorial section where you can just practice with that ability on before you move on. It's not very well explained, but it's cool when it works because when you do get that combo, it feels so satisfying. There was one song where I did get it almost to 20 and it was just like bomb, 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 bomb. And I'm like, like the responsiveness of it, the animations and the tactileness of it felt really good.
Yeah. My highest combo was 16 throughout the game, and anytime I got up to 16, I felt like amazing, especially because, again, there's some really tough enemies, and especially anytime it's either like a boss fight or anytime you fight more than one enemy at a time, it's like real tough. So you do need to use this as much as you can. I wonder if this is something that's like, because it's a Game Boy Advance game, if it's in the manual and we just don't have the manual, playing it the way that we did. But anyway, they do tell you about it in the game, but they don't say much more.
Yeah, they just kind of say, hey, this is a thing, have fun. Like, okay, thanks, Snake, or whoever said that. Maybe the frog explains it.
Yeah, probably a friendly frog or a mole cricket or something like that. Yeah. So it's important because This game has a bunch of really difficult bosses, and this game commits one of the RPG sins that I hate, which is every random encounter in an area is super easy, and you can get through it with just your basic attacks or very minimal, buff, debuff, elemental spell damage. And then you get to a boss where there is something else going on that you were supposedly supposed to learn, but nothing about the earlier enemies taught you. And that happens a couple times in this game, where it's just, okay, I'm going to spend the next 3 hours grinding because levels are important. The stats are really important in this game. So that kind of sucks. There are a couple bosses that are just real assholes.
Oh yeah, there's a boss. I wrote the name down in these notes, but we're not spoiling it. There's a boss in a sewer area pretty late in the game that was the one that really threw me for a loop. I redid that fight so many times before I was able to move on. It kicked my butt. Ugh. I was looking up guides.
Yeah, there was one in a volcano that was just the worst. So anyway, it is a thing you probably will have to grind to get up to those bosses level once you get there. A couple things to help you though. Even in like regular encounters, this game can be quite difficult, and there are some things that help. So the first thing is your party members will have a good assortment of unique skills, whether it's like magic skills, psi skills in this game, or other creative tools, unique abilities, etc., that do buffs and status effects and debuffs and all of that. And I love a turn-based RPG system that incentivizes using all of these things, and Mother 3 100% does that, so that's cool.
Buffs are great, yeah. Genuinely. It's rare, actually. Normally, when I play turn-based RPGs, they say, don't use status effects, don't use buffs, it's a waste of time, they never work. No, Mother 3, genuinely, it's important. That's how I got through some of those later fights, is just buffing the crap out of Lucas and moving on. There's also, like, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend just like reading a guide to walk yourself through this entire game. I think that would probably, I don't know, ruin the vibe a little bit. But if you're ever stuck, I actually do recommend looking up boss guides and stuff on the internet. There's a handful of bosses that do have very interesting mechanics or secrets associated with how to beat them. There's specifically one boss I'm thinking about who you can basically just make go away entirely by handing them a specific item or having, I can't remember if you have to have it in your inventory or if you have to use it, but there's a couple moments like that, and theoretically you would hope that the game would code it a little bit better, and I'm sure there are hints here and there about how you're supposed to do those things, but if you ever are just like super duper stuck, sometimes there's a clever trick hidden somewhere that you can use to just make your problems vanish.
Yeah, a lot of the bosses, even the really difficult ones, have a trick to them. And the trick is not just do a bunch of damage as fast as you can. Like there's some particular status that they're weak to, or some item that you might have picked up in the environment around, like that like plays into the story of like their character and what their character would be, quote, weak to, etc. So that's cool. It's not always like signposted or hinted at even, but if you are like putting the dots together, you can figure it out. Or you can go check out the walkthrough on starman.net, which I used. Yeah, that's awesome. The other awesome thing that we touched on earlier, but it's worth bringing up again because it is a mechanic that, as far as I know, is unique to this series, and it's really cool. It's the rolling HP mechanic.
Yeah, bring it on. I love this.
It's so cool. So if you're unfamiliar, the way it works is when you get hit, your HP ticks down 1 HP at a time. So if you get hit for 50 HP, and you only have 40 left, you don't die instantly like you do in Final Fantasy. Your hit points tick down 40, 39, 38, 37. And during that time, the battle plays out and you're constantly just watching your HP tick down. You can do all the same actions that you could have done, even if you have taken what they call taken mortal damage. And if you're able to kill the enemy, if you're able to heal, if you're able to run away, all of those things will stop your character from, falling. And this is awesome. And it's a regular part of boss strategy later to just be like, they got hit for 500 damage. It's fine. I'll heal them. They'll be okay. Factoring this into your strategy adds a nice, cool layer of strategy that, like, again, I don't know why other RPGs don't do this. It's literally just this series that I'm aware of.
It's very stylistically appropriate to this series, I think. Like, I don't think it would make sense in Final Fantasy necessarily.
Sure,
Maybe it would. Part of this is the visual effect, right? Because their HP bars are not bars. They're like little slot machine things, basically. Yep. And so you're watching the numbers spin as they drop down. And it feels very stylistically in keeping with the rest of the series. But it also rewards fast play, which I really like. Yeah. And you actually mentioned the Like a Dragon series earlier, and this is a slight tangent and a slight variation. It's different from what we're talking about here. But the most recent game, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, also rewards fast play, because when you enter a battle, everyone is kind of like ideally spread out where they're supposed to be standing. And if you menu very quickly and you know who you want to do what, and you move quickly, you can keep all of your enemies in a big bunch and just hit them with a really hard attack and get rid of them all at once. And Mother 3 and Earthbound feel like a different version of that, which is, you're not trying to attack as fast as possible necessarily, but what you are trying to do is move through menus quickly, especially when someone's been hit with mortal damage, because maybe you can save them, maybe you can get in one last attack and finish this battle off before they die, or maybe you can play your cards just right with the time that you have. It doesn't reward sitting around in menus and pondering your next decision.
Yeah. Another series that famously tries to reward fast menu play, Final Fantasy, it's very similar, except you're more under the gun, we'll say, to make your decisions. Like, I remember, like, okay, this character got hit with mortal damage. They're going to die. The character that I might want to heal them is going to act last on the next turn. So I can't have them heal them because the character is going to die before their turn comes up. So I need to have the first character, the fastest one, do the healing, and then adjust my strategy after that. And it's a bunch of, like, really quick decision making, adjusting your strategies. Like, again, this is wonderful. I don't know why I don't see it. It might not make sense in, the next Final Fantasy game or whatever, but, like, indie RPGs, I haven't played them all, but I haven't heard of anyone else doing this.
It makes every character valuable too. There's certain fights where, like, I don't know, Duster is not as useful as other characters just because of what you're up against and what abilities he has at his disposal at that point. But I can load Duster up with certain items. I can make sure that everybody, even those who don't have healing spells, have opportunities to heal or to do certain other things. And then suddenly, no turn is wasted when you're going through this game. Like, even if you have a character who's not capable of doing as much damage to an enemy on their own, there's always ways to sort of rig the system with items or with timings or with support abilities that will make every turn valuable to you. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, I like a lot of what the battle system's doing. Like, I like the rolling HP a lot. I like the focus on status effects and buffs and debuffs. I like the rhythm system for keeping you engaged, even in those random enemies that you can take out in a turn or two as you're going through the levels. Like, I enjoy all of that stuff. There's like a balance to some of the levels and areas, and then the bosses at the end that I think is a little bit out of whack. Yeah. But overall, I think this is a perfectly fine RPG combat system that, like, during later boss fights, as long as you're at a level where you can hang with them, the strategy can get really interesting and intense. So It's good stuff.
I love it.
Yeah. We did mention at the beginning, or I mentioned that, like, I wish they would have iterated a little bit more on Earthbound. It is basically the same combat system plus the rhythm system. But, like, this game had a 12-year development cycle. They moved it from, like, at least 2 or 3 consoles before they landed on the Game Boy Advance. So I don't know. Maybe I should count myself lucky that it turned out as complete and finished as it did.
No, I mean, I think there's, like, there's some weak points. I don't necessarily know what I would have changed about it, because I do love the Earthbound combat system so much, but I was just thinking, like, the party composition is basically the same again for the third game in a row. You have your hero kid with the baseball bat. You have your magician. You have magician / healer, the PSI user. You have your sort of tools user, little bit different from Jeff, but using sort of tools and like interesting gadgets to make things happen. And then you have your fourth character who is like ostensibly the weakest member of your party, but then depending on what you equip him with and how you play your cards could be very, very, very powerful, actually.
Mm-hmm. I always kind of like using that fourth character just as like, this battle needs them to be the potion person. That's what they're going to do. This battle needs them to attack and hit the rhythm system. That's what we'll do this battle.
But my memory could be fuzzy, but doesn't he have some of the best equipment in the game?
I don't remember that either, to be honest.
I don't remember. I might be a little fuzzy on that, but I, as an analog for Pooh in Earthbound, that was my record. The character Pooh, if you've played Earthbound. But yeah, like again, it's a very similar structural setup. So if you're familiar with the Earthbound battle system, with the exception of the rhythm elements, you're basically playing the same thing. It will feel very familiar at a certain point, and I don't know, maybe you're sick of that. I don't know why you're playing Mother 3 though. If you're sick of that, find another game.
Right, you better hope the story is going to do it for you.
Yeah.
So let's listen to a bit more music. I want to highlight as much music as I can in this episode, and then when we come back, we'll get into our final thoughts, our housekeeping, and then soon spoilers will be coming. Okay, so wrapping up this non-spoiler part of the podcast, we always ask the question, what type of gamer, what type of person, who would you recommend play Mother 3?
Okay, I mentioned this a little bit at the front of the podcast, but this is I have a mental box that I put games like Mother 3 in that I just call weird RPGs. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But there's this like subgenre of games that feature very young protagonists, top-down, turn-based. They're all very inspired by Earthbound or inspired Earthbound themselves. They usually deal with like heavy emotional themes. They usually have really, really goofy sensibilities and a lot of humor. And they usually play in some way with the notion of what it means to do violence to other creatures, other things, other people. Undertale is like the biggest example of this that I think most people know. Earthbound is obviously the other one. I fell into this genre by playing Grasshopper's game Contact on the DS ages ago, which if you like Mother 3, you might not like Contact, but you will see the visual style basically replicated directly into Contact, and it is wild how similar those two games look. Moon is the other one I played recently that I really, really loved. It's a game that inspired Earthbound itself and was only released in the West just a couple years ago. Moon is phenomenal. There's a few others out there too. Those are the ones that I always think of. But if you liked literally any of those games, like please find a way to play Mother 3 because it's such a weird small subgenre that every year or so I find myself craving being able to play another game like all of those games. And you know, it's sometimes a little difficult to track down a new one that I haven't played yet. And Mother 3 just really did it for me last year. It was just, I think it might be the perfect encapsulation of this weird subgenre I've invented. And I would love more people to appreciate it.
Nice. Yeah. I agree with you with that categorization of weird RPGs, by the way. Like, I definitely think of a lot of those games you mentioned in the same box. So you're not alone there.
I think you can put like One Shot in there maybe as well, even though it doesn't really have combat. You can maybe, I played Off. I was on Axe of the Blood God a couple years ago, and I was asking for more recommendations of games like this, and people recommended Off. And Off is a very different take on, I think it fits into the box I was describing, but it's also a very deeply disturbing take on this genre. So maybe be prepared if you're going into that one. But Mother 3 is the one I think most people have not played just because of its availability. And oh man, you gotta play it.
I think from what I've seen, Omori seems kind of like this too, although it's
Omori's on there.
Yeah, so I'm going to be playing that for the podcast later this year. I'm looking forward to that.
I didn't finish it, but I did like Omori a lot.
Nice. So yeah, I agree with you. So if this type of RPG appeals to you, you know, if you like an RPG and you don't want to play a Final Fantasy game or Dragon Quest or something like that, you want something different, the Mother series, obviously like Earthbound is much more available than Mother 3, but if you played Earthbound already, then definitely recommend trying Mother 3. And earlier, I think I said that like I liked the plot of Earthbound more, like the setup for what's going on in the plot, but I like the emotional core of Mother 3 a lot more than Earthbound. And I liked it in Earthbound too, but I think that that's more the point of this game. And in the spoiler section, we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff and how this game works with that. So I think that it's quite good. And if you're a fan of this type of RPG at all, you should find a way to play this. It's not difficult. Both of us did. And it's out there. It's available. It's very good. Give it a try. So before we get into spoilers, we will do a little bit of housekeeping. And first things first, the guest always gets to talk about the things that they are doing. So Reb, tell people about your work, which is wonderful, by the way, and anything else that you may want to plug.
Yeah, I'm primarily an investigative reporter. I'm the resident investigative reporter at IGN.com for video games. And so, it's my job to tell the story of how the games we love get made, which is sometimes a really lovely story and sometimes a sad one. It can go both ways, and I try to talk about it all. You can find my work at IGN.com/person/Duck Valentine. It's all my articles there. I recently did a really, really, really big, time-consuming investigative report about Life is Strange Studio Deck 9 that I think is worth reading. I put a lot of effort into it, so you can read it if you want. I am no longer on Twitter. I have vanished into the ether. I am hovering around Blue Sky. My handle most places is Duck Valentine. But if you're on Twitter and looking for something to follow, I would highly recommend looking up the handle at IGN Union. That's right, IGN, the people who make all of the wonderful things that you see on IGN.com every day. We unionized a little over a month ago. We're super duper proud of our union. We're still working on getting a contract together. It just takes time. That's how it works. Because we got to go to the table and bargain with management over what we want and all sorts of other fun things. But in the meantime, we have a union and all the protections and wonderful things that offers. And I'm really proud of it. So I highly encourage you to support unions in game development, in media, in entertainment, wherever your local union is. Support them. And the best way you can support us right now, we're recording this well before this episode is coming out. So I have no idea what's going to be happening when this episode comes out. But the best way you can support us anytime is following us on Twitter at IGN Union, seeing what we're doing, and spreading the good word about whatever the IGN Union happens to be doing.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely recommend supporting the union. The games industry needs more unions, whether it's from the development side or the media side. I highly recommend supporting that. So go check that out. And then also make sure to read the work that Reb is doing. It's fantastic. Your article about Deck 9 and Life is Strange spurred some good conversation in our Discord server. And I have noticed every time I read an article on IGN, and I think, because I don't always read who wrote it right when I start reading, and I think, I'm glad somebody did this and wrote this. I look up and I see your name. So it's good stuff. Especially, I like the articles giving voices to the people in all of the rounds of layoffs that we've had. Good to give people a chance to tell their side of the story, because they would kind of disappear unless their tweets get through or something like that. So props to you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, now time to talk about myself. It's a rough transition. But yeah, you'll look down in the show notes. You'll find every place that we mentioned there, where to follow the union, where to find Reb's reporting. Good stuff. So for this podcast, ways to support, same things as always. If you leave a rating and review, it's helpful to push this up the algorithm. If people are looking for Mother 3 podcasts, they might find this one, and that's what we want. You can also join the Discord server. There's an invite link down in the show notes. It's full of wonderful, intelligent, kind people. We're a very welcoming community. We love to talk about video games and all of that stuff. So please join if you are a Discord person. I have another podcast called A Top 3 Podcast where we do top 3 lists. We draft weird topics. It's a comedy show. I think that's a good time. And last but not least, if you want to support monetarily, you can do so at patreon.com/realdavejackson, where for a minimum of $2 per month, you can vote in what games I do on the show. And there are a bunch of other perks as the tiers go up. So with all of that being said, we are going to take a break. When we come back, it's full spoiler time for Mother 3. Okay, we're back, and it's full spoiler time for Mother 3, and the spoilers are going to come in hot, so if you don't want to be spoiled, please get out. Go listen to something else. Go play Mother 3, and then come back. That's the beauty of podcasts. We'll always be here. So, let's talk about the inciting event, the thing that we stopped just short of talking about in the non-spoiler part, and it's like, it happens so early in the game, and it's something that like people might already know, but I didn't want to be the person to spoil it for somebody because I didn't know.
Before you say this, there's a line, I think it was used in the Mother 3 marketing that or something that was, it gets tossed around a lot. And people always say about Mother 3, you can't cry till the end. Don't cry until the end. And it's like a line. I'd have to look up to see if it's like a marketing line or what it was used in, but that's like the line that people say for Mother 3. And it's such like, you know, you can cry whenever you want, obviously, but yeah, it's just that line being associated with Mother 3. This game has so many points where you just want to openly weep. And immediately in the very beginning of the game, you get hit with one.
Yep. So we said that Lucas and Klaus are on their way home. There's the forest fire, and things are kind of going haywire. And one of the things that you find out, in addition to the fire, in addition to the men in the pig masks, is that these local dinosaur-type creatures called Dragos, who are normally friendly, they ended up attacking Hinawa, Lucas, and Klaus on the way home. We'll find out why later. But Lucas survived this. Hinawa jumped in front of them to shield them from the attacking dinosaur, and she died. She was found with one of their teeth piercing her heart. So the mom dies. What would you say, like 15 minutes into the game? 20 minutes?
Basically immediately. You get the scene where they're playing with the friendly Dragos. Yeah. And then you get a couple little snippets of them hanging out at Grandpa's house. And then they start walking back through the forest, and then all hell breaks loose, and then this happens. It's not even, it's in the first hour immediately.
Yep, it's pretty soon. And then Klaus, Lucas's older brother, is seen as this chapter ends. It kind of pans out. They're looking for Klaus. They don't know where he is, and they show he's down on like a lower level, like he fell off of a cliff or something like that. He's just laying there down at the bottom. So you don't know if he's alive, if he's dead. I still have questions about whether he survived that or not, which we can...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we can talk about that when we get to the reunion. It's the spoiler section or whatever, so I don't know. What did you think he survived, or did you think he was...
Well, obviously, okay, so at this point in the game, you know, you see him, but you don't... Not long after, it's like, oh, we have to find Klaus. We don't know where he is. And it becomes apparent that this search for him is going to go on for a very long time for certain people. And so, like, at this point, I was like, oh, well, he's probably alive then. Because when video games don't show that, like, Hinawa was pierced with this fang. She's dead. That she's not coming back. Klaus, it's ambiguous. And if it's ambiguous, he's probably alive in some way. I did not know what the nature of that was going to be, but I assumed he was alive in some way. And then what I think you're referring to later in the game, when you do find out what happened to him, I did think that was Klaus. This is the first time hearing of this theory, and I'm super curious about...
Oh. Not a theory that it's not Klaus, but a theory that he is reanimated in some way. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's fully plausible within this game's universe, yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily change anything about the story. I just thought that was, a possibility, because it looks like he fell off of a cliff, so.
Yeah. I mean, the thing, it's full speed ahead, whatever. The thing that we get into later is that we find out that these pig masks, these guys that were running around, have been doing some sort of experiments where they've been fusing like cybernetic technology robot crap with natural things, which is what we find out happened to the Drago that caused it to attack Hinawa. We find all sorts of things like that. Later on, it seems that something maybe like that has happened to Klaus. But I see what you're saying. Like, that could have reanimated him if he was dead, but it also could have just been done to him while he was alive.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, it's not super important which of those it is. It was just something that came up as it's possible. So the death of Hinawa is like the inciting event that kind of kicks off the rest of the game. And it kicks off one of the things that I really like about this game. And one of its central themes is grief and how different people deal with it. And how, in Lucas's case, how the world treats you as you deal with it. So before we talk about Lucas, just real quick, Flint, his dad, deals with grief by going extreme tunnel vision into finding Klaus, to the point where he completely ignores Lucas for the whole game until the very end.
Yeah.
Which is, I have read a lot of these stories about like a parent who had a missing kid and they like devote their life to finding their missing kid. And it turns out they have other kids. And I just wonder, like, what's it like for the other kid when the parents are so single-minded focused? And that's what's going on here with Flint. And I thought that was an interesting thing because early in the game, you play as him, you fight as him. He's a playable character. And then he's basically out of the picture until the last chapter because he's just looking for Klaus. That's all he cares about.
Yep. I actually think to back it up a little bit, the moment when Flint finds out and realizes what's happened to Hinawa, like he loses it. And
he freaks out.
I think they did such an incredible job. We praised the animations and the visual stylings of this game. That scene where he kind of goes a little nuts. He hits a guy, running around.
They have to throw him in jail.
Yeah, it's like
because he's freaking out.
To get him to chill out and stop hurting people, to be clear. Like, it is like grief-induced madness. But he's like, it's all in this top-down 2D, like little Game Boy Advance animations, but it's just so well conveyed, like the emotion that this man who's like, look, he's quiet. You know, he was staying home to take care of the farm, so you didn't see him a whole lot in the opening chapters, but he is up to that point portrayed as a very devoted family man. Like, he clearly loves Hinawa. He clearly loves his kids, and he lives for them, basically. And this is just like torn him apart. And in the moment when he finds out about Hinawa's death, he also like potentially thinks he's lost one of his sons as well. He thinks Klaus is also dead. I actually can't remember. Is Lucas gotten back at that point? Has he found Lucas? I think he has Lucas at that point.
Yeah, because they bring Lucas back.
Yeah, so he knows Lucas is okay, but he doesn't know where Klaus is. So he's potentially lost with his wife and one of his sons at that point, his like very young son. And it clearly destroys this man in that moment. And it's such an incredible scene. Again, like 1 hour into this video game.
Yeah.
And juxtaposed, by the way, I believe not long after or not long before, by, pardon me, goofy ass shit like Duster trying to help out by using a staple gun on a cliff to make a ladder. Like all of this going on while this silly business is happening.
Yeah, that's one of the things that this game does pull off, I think, really well, is that goofy shit, like you said, at the same time when very serious shit is happening. Like you said, Flint has definitely lost his wife and possibly one of his sons. And so he freaks out. Like you said, great animations. This is all played out through pixel art on the Game Boy Advance. This is not, the latest and greatest technology that we have in 2024. So that's great. He goes on like a revenge path. He takes the tooth that killed Hinawa. He wants to go kill the dinosaur that did it. And then we have a moment where he's about to do it. And then the dinosaur's kid comes up next to it, and he finally chills out. Like, he spares them. The dinosaur even sheds a tear. This game starts out with it's very sleepy for like 15 minutes, and then it's like 100 miles an hour immediately
delves very clearly into like the thesis that hurt people. Like, everybody is hurting each other because they themselves are hurting. Flint is hurting and he's punching a guy and trying to kill a dinosaur. The dinosaur is hurting and it killed Hinawa, who, like we see in the opening scenes, the dinosaur and Hinawa were friends. It clearly knows what it was what it has done and regrets it. We see the children taking on the burdens of their parents, the child shielding its parent. Lucas watching all of this transpire. It's, oh my gosh, it's so messed up, and it's also it's not over explained at any point. The art and the dialogue do all of the talking. You don't need a giant 20-page paper explaining to you how everybody is feeling and exactly what transpired moment to moment. You can just see it and you understand immediately that everybody is just going through it on every possible level.
Yep. And then right after this, Flint goes full tunnel vision mode to find Klaus, and you barely see him until the last chapter of the game.
Yeah.
You will just hear townsfolk say that he's out looking for him all the time, or he visits the grave, and that's about it. And then turning this over to Lucas, where you have the way his dad reacted to everything, and now you have Lucas, who is a little kid who he doesn't react with the same anger that Flint does, but he's a little kid. Like, he doesn't know how to react to situations like this. His mom is gone. Now his dad is gone too, because it's very clear his dad's not really paying much attention to him. Lucas is kind of left to fend for himself.
He's lost his big brother also.
Yep.
You know who's taking care of him? The family dog.
The dog,
Boney.
yeah, Boney.
Good old
Boney's
Boney.
a real one, yeah.
Boney has never done anything wrong in his life.
That's right. So Lucas's journey through grief is one of the main things about this game that I think it does really, really well. And it starts out where Lucas is just inconsolable. People, like, we talked about this in the non-spoiler part. People in town are kind of mean about this, and they just say like, oh yeah, Lucas, all he does is cry. And it's like, yeah, of course. He's like 8 years old, and like his mom and brother just died. Of course he's crying, and his dad's not there. Like, it's pretty fucked up the way that it's portrayed at the beginning, where like you were introduced to Tazmily as this place of nice people, this utopian place almost. And then everyone's like, yeah, Lucas, like all he does is cry. Like, what's wrong with Lucas, man?
It's played off really well too, because, I might be sort of misremembering. Again, it's been like a year since I played this game, but they don't usually say that kind of thing to Lucas's face. They do like talk to him like a kid, but you do venture through Tazmily as Duster, and as other characters at different points too. And they say these things to other adults, right? Like they'll turn to Duster and they'll be like, oh yeah, Lucas lives there. He's like always crying. What's his deal? And it's that sort of like backhanded, very, someone who grew up in the Midwest, that very, we'll be very Midwestern nice to your face, but oh man, what's his problem behind your back? And I think the different dialogue, depending on who they're speaking to, is really well done as well. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good connection there as someone who's also from the Midwest.
But then they'll shit talk Duster behind his back. It all go, everyone's just like that.
Yep. Later on, it's at the beginning of chapter 4, I think, or sometime in chapter 4. After you do a chapter as Lucas, and then you do a chapter as Duster, and then you do a chapter as Salsa the monkey. We'll talk about him and Facade in a little bit.
Salsa the monkey.
Yeah. And then in chapter 4, you play as Lucas again, and he wakes up, and as soon as he wakes up, he starts to get dressed, and then you have a flashback to a memory where he remembers his mom, he remembers her funeral, he remembers them like joking with each other because he tries to go outside without taking his pajamas off and getting dressed. This is 3 years later, by the way.
Yeah.
In chapter 4.
I think this is the biggest time skip, right? The other ones are not quite that big.
I think this might be the biggest one.
I think so, because he do see a little change in his sprite, right? Like he's a little shorter. I don't know what age he's supposed to be. I kind of imagined him as being like, I don't know, maybe like 5 years old originally. When the
like
incident happens,
little
and
kid.
Maybe like 8, 9, maybe pushing 10. I don't know. He's young. He's a kid.
Still a kid. Yeah, even after 3 years, still a kid.
He's not a teenager. He's not a preteen. He's not remotely in that area. This guy's going to like elementary school.
Yep. He should be, but
theoretically, but his dog's taking care of him.
Yeah, exactly. His dog's raising him because 3 years later, his dad is still going out in the woods every day looking for Klaus or spending time at Hinawa's grave. And I just thought this scene was really great to just show us that 3 years later, first thing in the morning, he wakes up and he remembers his mom because he's still a kid. Yeah.
Still a kid.
It's kind of heartbreaking because it's all these just cute memories of a mom and her young kid.
Yeah. And you can get a little more too. You can go visit Hinawa's grave in different chapters too, and get different memories. And you can sometimes see Flint there. But you just get there's a lot of flashbacks, and again, a child, he is just kind of always thinking of his mom that he lost.
Yep. 3 years later, first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Yep. Chapter 6 is a really famous chapter for people who played this game. It's like 10 minutes long. I don't know why it's its own chapter, but maybe they just wanted to isolate this moment. This is the one in the sunflower field.
Yeah.
So yada, yada, yada. Lucas has fallen from an airplane.
We'll get to that.
Because the rope snake failed. And he falls in the sunflower field. He looks around. You're looking for the party members. He looks around, remembers his mom because they had a sunflower at home. And then he sees a mirage of her in the field, and he chases the mirage through the sunflower field. It leads to a cliff, and she's up in the clouds off the edge of the cliff. And there's like a little moment where he sits and looks, and then he jumps off of the cliff and reaches toward his mom up in the sky. Luckily, he falls down into a straw pile because this is Assassin's Creed suddenly.
Do I remember this right? You have to do it as the player, right? Like
you might have to, yeah.
You have to player input him off the ledge, which is
I think so.
The hardest goddamn thing I had to do in this game. Oh my God. Because you know what it's doing in that moment. You sit there and you're like, okay, I understand what I have to do to proceed on this story, but how am I going to throw a kid off a ledge?
Yeah, exactly. It's another, it's really short, but it just shows you like, okay, this is chapter 6. It's been a little while. It's been, hours of game time since chapter 4. And maybe you got another scene by visiting the grave, but Lucas all the while is on this quest. And by this point I think you went to the Thunder Tower, and you met Facade, and you met your other party characters. You've done a bunch of stuff. And then you get to the sunflower field, and the memory of mom comes rushing back, and it's still strong enough to the point where he will literally jump off of a cliff for the chance to be reunited with her. And it's a very short scene, but it's super powerful.
Yeah. It's freaking incredible. Sorry. I love it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And then, but back at the, this is, we'll talk about Tazmili's progression or corruption soon. But when you get back to town, you talk with Alec, who's, Alec? Who's Alec?
He's Duster's dad.
That's
no,
Duster's
he's
dad?
the grandpa. Sorry, Wes is Duster's dad.
Wes is Duster's dad. Yeah, Alec and Wes are in the nursing home in Tazmily. And you talk with them. They said that they had a dream where Hinawa told them to put that pile of hay down at the bottom of the cliff. And they say that no matter what, Hinawa is thinking of you. And this pays off in later chapters.
Yeah. Can I go off on a small tangent here?
Sure. Yeah.
Have you seen Bee and Puppycat?
No.
Okay, so it's an animated show. There's a version of it that ran for a while, and now there's a new version of it on Netflix. But there's a character in it called Cardamom, and Cardamom is a young child. He's like, I don't know how old he's supposed to be. I think he's in like preschool, kindergarten, really young. Anyway, Cardamom in the early episodes, he is the main character, Bee's landlord, and it's initially played off like a joke. Like he shows up to do a landlord job. He's like fixing the toilet by hitting it with a squeaky hammer. It's a gag. It's funny. But in the new Netflix series, in the later episodes, you find out a little more about like why he's actually her landlord and not his mother, who is an adult. And you find out more of his backstory, and you find out that he is also like the characters in this game going through it in every possible way. And he is this literal tiny child who is trying to be the responsible one, while every adult around him is just like deeply incompetent and completely ignoring his suffering. And there's this really great scene that I think of a lot in a later episode where, again, the adults have just failed in every possible way. He's trying to save a bunch of other children, and he's been doing all this stuff. Like his house is overgrown with all these plants that he can't get rid of. His mom is basically in a coma. Everybody's incompetent. And he just looks around and he goes, why is nobody helping me? why are none of these adults helping me? And he has like this minor breakdown where he's like, you all are supposed to be helping me and no one is. And I feel that so much in thinking about Mother 3, because Lucas, as you said, he's here on his own. All the people in his life are supposed to be responsible for him. None of them are helping him. And he is the one who is supposed to be helped in this case. Society should be pooling their resources to take care of this poor child and like help him get the support that he needs and make sure that he knows he's loved. And everybody has just ditched him except the dog. But, you know, we'll talk about some of the characters who do come to his aid later and why they come to his aid, like Duster and Kumatora, Boney, obviously the dog. The dog will never abandon you. But this is one of those moments because you do get Alec and Wes who are there. Alec is there for him, in this moment. Maybe he wasn't always like super there for him, but the sort of unifying moment of Hinawa, like the mother's love, reminding Lucas that like, oh, you know, she is there for him still. Like there is still at least one adult somewhere in his life in some capacity who loves him and will take care of him. And even if she's not there to do it herself, there are adults who are going to try to reach out. That said, these are two adults who have been relegated to a nursing home by society because they are trying to get rid of anybody with a compassionate heart so that they can keep doing their little slimy evil things. And so again, those themes of like society casting out the people who are compassionate and trying to help, and whose burden is it to take on the responsibilities of society. Anyway, I love the through lines here. I love that it's Alec and Wes who get this message to help him.
Yeah, it's a good observation that, again, like his dad's not really helping him because he's got that extreme tunnel vision of looking for Klaus. He's basically gone. The townspeople who would be next in line are making fun of Lucas behind his back, so you can tell they're not going over to check up on him and stuff like that. And Duster and Kumatora and Boney are there. They're in the party, but they are not necessarily part of Lucas's journey through grief. They're just there with him from an RPG party member perspective. Like they have their own things going on. Duster, we can just talk about Duster and his whole deal now since we're on the topic.
Yeah.
Duster's introduction, I think it's in chapter 2 when you first play as Duster, and he is a thief, and he's under the tutelage of his dad. And I already forgot which is his dad,
Wes.
Alec or Wes. Wes is his dad. Alec is his grandpa or something.
Alec is Lucas's grandpa.
Oh, Alec is Lucas's grandpa.
Wes is Duster's
That's right,
dad.
because Alec had to leave his house on the mountain, and the only place for him to go was the nursing home.
The nursing home.
Yeah. And Wes is a fucking dick to Duster.
So awful.
Yeah. He's trying to teach him how to be a thief, and you play as Duster. You go do the thief thing. Duster's clearly a capable thief.
He's great at it, yeah.
Yeah. Wes
staples the wall. Does a great job.
Staples the wall, uses the rope snake, all that stuff. Wes is a dick to Duster, and Duster is kind of like a mopey kind of butt of the joke type character early in the story.
Yeah. I actually love Duster. I think he's great. He is kind of mopey. He has a weird amnesia plot at one point that I actually think didn't make a whole lot of sense, really. Yeah. He ultimately turns around. I think like very critically and very interestingly for a game made at this time, Duster is disabled. He walks with a limp. And it's visually noticed in the very good animations. I think it's referenced at least a couple times, like what his deal is. He's freaking great. The game treats this with so much respect, I feel. I mean, I'm not really able to speak on behalf of the disabled community for this, but I thought it was a really good and interesting portrayal that I was not expecting from a game in this era of this character who is complex and imperfect, but also fundamentally very good. And again, tying back into this thing I keep harping on, which is, you know, the people who are rejected by society in various ways, as Duster is throughout this plot. His dad's constantly telling him what a loser he is, specifically, notably, not because of his disability, but because he thinks he's just terrible at being a thief.
Right.
And, you know, various other people sort of rejecting Duster or thinking he's not really good for anything, probably because of what his dad says about him. But him ultimately, when literally nobody else shows up to help Lucas, when it turns out that Lucas is the one who is going to have to solve everybody's problems for them, Duster's like, well, great, okay, I'm here too, so we're gonna do it. And yeah, I really enjoyed Duster's participation in all this, and his arc is this thief who is just trying to get by and ends up joining because it's just the thing that he has to do.
Yep. And then, you know, joins a rock band, becomes a rock star for a brief period of time.
He has amnesia. What are you going to do?
Yep. If I ever have amnesia, I hope I wake up as a, you know, part of a rock band. That would be ideal. The other person that's part of this is Kumatora, and kind of thinking about all of your party members, aside from Boney. Lucas has his loss and his whole situation going on. Duster, like you said, is disabled, and people generally treat him like trash. Kumatora has an interesting story too, because you learn very early on that she's princess of this castle that's north of Tazmily.
Yeah.
But there's no one else there. Like, you never meet anyone else in the royal family. The castle is inhabited by ghosts. So they they don't explain this for a very long time about like what's the deal with Kumatora. But once you find that out, the fact that she is the last of her people, that gives her that other kind of backstory, like similar to the other party members, where she has a, you would think, a traumatic backstory, being raised, you know, with no one like her around. Her family's not around, nothing like that.
I think hearing you talk about it again, because so much of her backstory is revealed later in the game, and so for a lot of it, she's just kind of this young woman who's traveling with you, and it's not really clear like what her deal is apart from being a powerful PSI user. The more I think about it, like I guess if she's going to represent anything, it's so she's been orphaned, like she has experienced deep loss, but it's pretty far back in her past at this point. And
I think she was a baby.
Yeah,
so.
and she's now, you know, like maybe it impacted her differently because, you know, she wasn't as aware of it, but I'm sure it was difficult to grow up the way that she did.
Yeah.
But she was surrounded by, from everything I can see, a loving community of people who raised her well, and she is now powerful and competent and thoughtful. Like, she goes undercover for a very long time, seemingly, to try to help Duster, even though she has no idea if he's ever going to come out of the weird funk that he's in. And yeah, she's a competent and seemingly pretty happy, thoughtful, resourceful person. And I don't know, maybe in juxtaposition to Lucas, it's that, oh, well, Lucas will come through this as well, given time and given support from his community.
Yeah. Just the issue with that is kind of like you said, like they tell you this in an exposition dump late in the game. Kumatora, to my knowledge, never comments on it. So
no, she doesn't.
any kind of like character or importance that we're ascribing to her backstory is all on us. It's nothing that the game really gives us. So just, you know, trying to make that connection for it is one of those games where everybody in the party, I guess including the dog, is going through it, has been through a lot.
Yeah.
And so the strength of the group together, and that's one of the things that becomes important later in the game, is the encouragement that they get from everybody else, and the encouragement they give each other.
Yeah, I do want, I just want more for Kumatora. I feel like she's sort of I don't want to say an afterthought. Like, she's pretty plot critical in various ways, but I don't know. I want her, she's fun and she's sassy and she uses cool magic, and I just want her to have more going on.
Yeah, I mean, when we got to that backstory thing where they were like, she's the last remaining member of this noble house that existed before the people of Tazmily existed, I was like, oh, okay. waited a long time to tell me that, and then
Yeah.
they never talked about it ever again. So
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah.
I think it sometimes feels like they needed a fourth party member and they didn't want to just do another Paula and they didn't know what to do. So they made Kumatora.
Yeah. But that was in that moment when they were like, this is her backstory. I was like, oh, right. She's a princess. She is Princess Kumatora. I remember that now because it's not important in any way for the story. It's one of those things where like the story and the why of everything took a little while to get going. And so like the reason I'm focusing on Lucas's path for so long at the beginning of the spoiler section is that's what you have as you're playing, that and the changes in the town, basically. So one more moment for Lucas that I wanted to mention before we kind of put a pin in this and talk about some other story stuff is in chapter 7. So Lucas has been going through the game and just periodically remembering things about his mom. And then you have that scene in the Sunflower Seed where he endangers himself to follow this ghost of his mom. In chapter 7, this is the one where you wake up on the beach, you lost all your items, you're hungry, so everyone eats the hallucinogenic mushrooms.
Oh my gosh. I completely forgot about the entire drug sequence.
Yep, the drug sequence. So this part's particularly fucked up because Lucas hallucinates all the people from town, all of his family members, including Klaus, basically talking shit to him nonstop. Everybody you talk to talks to Lucas about how much of a failure he is, everything like that. So a couple examples, some different versions of Klaus tell him that everyone you love is waiting for you. This is a quote from the game I wrote down. Everyone you love is waiting for you, waiting to throw rocks at you, spit on you, and make your life hell. Lucas is a child. Let's remember this. A different version of Klaus tells him he wants to switch places with Lucas because he's more, and then it cuts off. You can't see what he says. But we're assuming that Lucas thinks that Klaus is probably dead. So he wants to switch places with him. Somebody tells Lucas that his mother's waiting for him with the favorite food that you typed in at the beginning of the game. For me, it was noodles. And then you go up to a mailbox and it's full of rotten noodles. And Lucas is just having a real rough time. Salsa, the monkey, tells Lucas that it's his fault that Salsa got caught and got in trouble with Facade.
By the way, Facade has tortured Salsa. Just throwing that out there since we haven't talked about that yet. He's telling it's Lucas's fault that Salsa got tortured.
Yep. So again, Lucas going through it in this hallucination. I thought this was going to culminate with a hallucination of Hinawa talking shit to Lucas at the end of it. It does not happen. But
it's the one relationship he's secure in. Literally the one.
Mm-hmm. It does not happen. That would have really fucked me up if they did have that, though, but they didn't. And I think that's a good observation by you there.
It's a good. It's a good choice that they made. I think it would have been. I think it would have fucked me up. I think it also would have been like weirdly dissonant because in every single scene he is completely assured of her love.
Yep.
Even from beyond the grave.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So just this is Lucas's journey. He basically, it seems like throughout the game, any free time he gets, any free moment, or first thing when he wakes up, or if he visits Hinawa's grave, the thing that his mind jumps to is his memories with his mom. And then you have this kind of like emotional climax here in chapter 7, one of the emotional climaxes, where basically Lucas imagines how everybody thinks of him. And it might not be too far off because, like we talked about several times, the people in the town are not nice behind his back. So it's plausible that he would overhear people talking about this at the very least.
Also, again, none of them are helping him. So he knows. He's not a fool.
one of the reasons that no one's helping him is this change in the town that's going on with these events, this journey that Lucas is going on. The town is also going through changes too. So one of the reasons I think, well, at the beginning of the game, they don't have this excuse, but everyone gets addicted to their TVs and stuff as the game goes on. And so they seem like they don't have the capacity to help anybody, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe this was clear to you, but it's not like just a TV that they're being sold. So like very early on in the game, Facade shows up and is basically selling them these TVs. And it's very clearly like symbolic of, oh, we're all going inside and staring at our screens instead of going out and enjoying nature and spending time with people. I mean, it's a little on the nose. But there is, to me at least, there was at least some implication that these were magic or like somehow unnatural in some way, where they were like literally pulling people's attention in a way that was messed up. And you find out as you watch Tazmily change, you know, various things happen. They introduce money, because the whole goal here is to get people to spend money and enrich the people who are ultimately bringing them these TVs, which is tied back into the pig masks and tied back into who turns out to be the ultimate villain. But while all this is going on, you know, they introduce money into town, and money ruins everybody's lives because suddenly people understand the concept of greed as if they didn't before. And the people who refuse to engage with this, the people who are like, no, I do not, you know, we're not going to get a TV in our house. They end up getting sent off to the nursing home or otherwise thrown out of society.
Yeah, they end up getting forcibly displaced from their homes because this lightning tower is directing lightning strikes at their houses. Like, Flint
they just
and
blow
Lucas,
up the houses of the people they don't like.
Yep. Flint and Lucas's house has been struck like dozens of times by lightning because Flint refuses to buy one of they call them happy boxes, which is the TVs, the mind-controlled devices. And this is one of the other things that I really like about this is how Tazmily starts out as this sleepy, idyllic place. There's no money. Everyone is supposedly nice to each other. They're kind of dicks to Lucas at the beginning, but like people seem generally
it's going
friendly.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, things seem fine. And then Facade arrives with Salsa. I was never clear on why he needs a monkey to do this stuff. Maybe just be a mascot or something like that. But he comes in and he introduces these concepts of money and capitalism and giving people these happy boxes, which are like you said, kind of magical mind-controlled TVs that kind of warp everybody's mind. And then as the game progresses, you see the changes in the village as you go. So I really liked when a new chapter came, if I was going back to Tazmily, seeing what's going on. You see a train station go in. You see people excited about the train station. The sleepy kind of song that accompanies Tazmily at the beginning of the game is replaced by this like upbeat sound of commerce music.
Yeah.
I think the song on YouTube is called They're Putting in a Train Station or something like that.
That's good. Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, it also slowly expands out. I mean, I know video games just do that because that's how video games work, but you very much get this sense at the beginning. There's Tazmily, there's the forest, and then there's Grandpa's house up north. And then the more you play, like, it's a really interesting overworld because it's not like this typical RPG overworld. Like, you know, in Earthbound, you're going from 1-et to Tucson to Threed to Fourside, and you're like moving kind of in, not linearly, but you're moving further and further away from where you start. But in Mother 3, you very much constantly come back to Tazmily, and you're going in one chapter, maybe you're going north to the castle. In another chapter, maybe you're taking the railroad somewhere, but then later you'll come back. And it's constantly just growing the area around Tazmily, and you feel the world getting bigger and bigger and bigger as they sort of awaken to what is going on outside of their walls. Yeah, I was going to say it reminds me of like the world according to a child, where the only places that exist are your house, your town, the really weird forest, and then your grandpa's house. But the people in town are also so sheltered
and we'll talk about their backstory in a second, that might as well be the world that exists to them as well, in that state of, I don't know, arrested development that the entire town seems like they're under. And finding out why they're that way was kind of interesting. But a couple other things I wanted to note about the progression / corruption of the town, other than the people whose houses are destroyed by the lightning, either going to live in the nursing home, which is a fucking shithole of a nursing
horrible.
home, by the way. The first time you go in there, you're like, man, this is where like Lucas's grandpa's living now. The other thing is there's a factory where a bunch of people in town are working now. And it's one of those, factory towns. Like they have a club that's only for the factory workers and stuff. Like you can imagine, like they might even do this. I don't remember. Do they have their own money? They do have their own money, right?
Yeah. They have company money. Yeah.
Yeah. So where have we seen that before? Yeah. And then in chapter 7, as at the like final stage of this, people are just leaving Tazmily in flocks to go live in the big city where, the jobs are, the better life is, more money, etc. And the kind
their houses aren't getting constantly struck by lightning.
That's true. Yeah. If you move to the city, we'll stop hitting your house with lightning because
it's compelling.
Yeah, true. But I liked this revisiting the town, seeing the changes. Late stages of the town, the kind of happy commerce music is replaced by this like really sad, heartbreaking music.
Yeah.
Same melody, but much different tone to it.
Yeah. They do a really good job.
Yeah.
I feel like we should maybe address what the actual plot is.
I was just going to say, let's talk about the backstory of Tazmily.
Yeah. But so as Lucas goes, so initially he's just hanging out at his house and everything's kind of a bummer. But gradually he begins to sort of uncover strange things happening around him that all seem to center around these pig masks and these weird machines that they're using to corrupt the environment. And it obviously starts with what happens to Hinawa, but it escalates as he sort of exists in the town around him and meets different characters.
Yeah. So like for a while, the plot of Mother 3 is these pig masks are around. They're causing trouble. Facade is introducing commerce to Tazmily. And you're just kind of going from place to place, trying to solve problems, but you don't know what's actually happening for a really long time. You're playing as different
characters too. Like Duster has an early chapter where he's tasked with stealing something from a castle.
Yeah.
And so you get a little bit of the story that way. Salsa has a chapter where you find out where he's traveling with Facade and you find out like what's happening with him.
Right.
I don't remember what's Lucas's early chapter where he's just sort of bopping around town. Like,
I think,
what's he even doing in that? Yeah, it's not.
So like the plot of it and the reason for what you're doing takes forever. And eventually you learn of this sleeping dragon underneath the islands that is being held by these needles. So there are these, they call them needles in the game, that are holding the power of the dragon, and the villain, who you're not sure who it is until the last chapter.
Whoever's in charge of the pig masks.
Yeah. They're trying to pull these needles out to wake up this dragon, because whoever wakes up the dragon, I got the feeling it was like whoever pulls more of the needles, or whoever pulls the last one, I wasn't totally sure.
It's more. It's more.
Whoever does that, their soul will be reflected in the way the dragon comes out. And like if the evil ones pull it out, it will cause like the end of the world and like an evil apocalypse, basically. Lucas can also do this. He has the power, but he's pure of heart. So he needs to go do it so that they don't cause the end of the world in that terrible way.
Again, the adults have just fucked everything so deeply that the only way we can all have a peaceful existence is if a literal child shoulders the burdens of society and rips a needle out of a dragon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Normal stuff.
But you don't know, like, this was what I meant when I said, like, the plot wasn't super interesting to me for a really long time, because it's like, okay, this is goofy, like pulling the needles out. There's a sleeping dragon. Why? What's the point? Until they give you that exposition at the end of, or very close to the end of like the backstory of the islands and what this actually is, then I was like, okay, that makes more sense to me. And I'm more interested in it now. So I don't know, like I think you said much earlier in the episode, you were already pulled along by the mystery of it all.
Yeah, I really like games that don't explicitly spell out for you in the first however long what's going on. I think I really enjoy taking my time and exploring, and I like games where you have a sense that you could screw something up, and I don't really think you can in Mother 3. I think it is despite its structure, it is actually a very linear game. Like you just kind of go from point A to point B, and there's stuff that's missable, but none of it's really that pertinent. But it very much feels like at times that, oh, there's stuff that I could miss. There's something I might not be doing. I don't really know what my goal is. Therefore, I could screw it up somehow. And I kind of like that. I like that it's sort of meandering and you're just inhabiting this person, this child, who's sort of just trying to do right by himself and everyone around him. You know, he's living in this village. He's trying to help out his family and the people around him. He meets Duster. He tries to help out Duster. And then, you know, he eventually finds out that, he finds out that people's houses are getting nuked by a weird lightning rod nearby. And so, obviously we've got to put a stop to whatever that is. But no one else is doing it. Like everybody's so obsessed with their TVs or they've been locked in a nursing home. And so he's the only one left. And so he's got to go do it. And he goes and takes care of these things. But then he finds out that he has also on top of that, this great destiny. And it's not a great destiny that's put upon him because he's like the subject of a prophecy or anything the way Ness was, but it's just because he's a kid and is pure of heart and his mom did her best to raise him. Yeah. And so here he is. He's a savior. And so he's just got to go get it done. But I think that, you know, pull X amount of needles and awaken the sleeping dragon sounds like a very RPG plot. You know, awaken the 7 crystals, whatever it is you're going to do. I like that you don't actually have to do all of them. In fact, you can't. You're in a race with another person to do it. Yeah,
you'll watch the others do
They keep kind of telling, like, you feel an earthquake, and then they tell you, "Oh, off screen, they pulled the needle before you. Whoopsie daisy. Guess you got to go on to the next one." Or, "Oh no," and that I kind of like that. It makes the second half moves along at a really nice pace. Because the first half is all these sort of meandering point of view chapters where you're just sort of getting to know the town and getting to know who everybody is and what's going on. And then the second half, you do assemble your party, which, to be clear, we haven't really said is Lucas, Kumatora, Duster, and Boney the dog. And you go off on this adventure to you have your mission to stop the pig masks from pulling all the needles. Right.
So I don't necessarily need a game to like spell out exactly the plot right at the beginning for me all the time, but I also don't like it when I'm going through hours and hours of game and I don't know why I'm moving from place to place other than just like, there's a problem here, go fix this. There's a problem here, go fix this. So that was more of the thing for me personally with this. No, but
I think I just liked.
Yeah.
I like what you said. I like the mystery of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Late in the game, they do kind of give you the more detailed backstory about like, okay, you're pulling these needles in the dragon, but like, what's the deal with the needles and the dragon anyway? So a quick rundown for people who didn't play or maybe people who forgot. This is what they tell you about like what this place actually is, why Tazmily Village is the way that it is at the beginning of the game, and then what this corrupting force actually is. So you learn that this is not the way the world has always been, that long ago there was a much bigger world that existed, full of people, like our world. Humans ended up destroying it, even though they always kind of knew they would end up destroying it. That's a quote from the game. And again, where have we heard that before? So just before the destruction, a group of people went to this place, Tazmily, to escape as part of, they call it the White Ship Plan. And this would be the only place on the Earth that survives the end of the world, basically. The dragon that is underneath these islands, called the Nowhere Islands, is the thing that makes them special. People used to coexist with the dragon, but it didn't last because people can't coexist with anything. So they put the dragon into this hibernation and sealed him away with the needles. And the people that came to Tazmily on the White Ship feared repeating the same mistakes that people always make, So they decided to erase everybody's memories and of the old world and start over fresh, basically. Just a clean wipe, fresh start for humanity on the or in the village on these islands. There's this item called the egg that's like the MacGuffin that you're chasing for a lot of the game. And that egg is important because it contains all of their previous memories. So if it falls into the wrong hands, who knows what could happen. Kumatora's people were there before the white ship arrived, but they left. And they left Kumatora as an infant to be raised there. And then this story with Wes and Duster as her loyal retainers was all just part of a story that was concocted there. Everything was going fine on the island until Porky from Earthbound.
Porky! Oh my gosh! He's still here!
He's still here, and he used a time distorter machine to find the islands and arrive there, bring the pig masks, and his goal is to get these people to leave and come populate his city called New Pork City.
I love the reveal of Porky. I think it's so good because you remember Porky from Earthbound is this character who he's Ness's neighbor. He's a bully and a jerk. We don't like him. And a coward as well. And throughout the plot of Earthbound, he pops up in a couple places and is just generally obnoxious. And then, all of Earthbound is about sort of taking down this group of kids taking down this alien, like horrifying alien force called Gygus. But at the very end of the game, you run into Porky again, and Porky, despite also being a very young child, has inexplicably allied himself with Gygus and turned himself into like sort of a weird, I don't know, he's kind of like a weird robot. He's got a little mini spaceship thing that he's driving. But he fights you, and then you beat him, but he escapes, and he kind of warns that he'll pop back up again someday. And it's such a strange connection. But he does, as you say, come back through time and space and show up here. And this is the moment I was talking about in the first half of the show when I said, if you don't really need to have played Earthbound, you don't need to know who Porky is. He's a villain, whatever. I imagine it's a little, if you never played Earthbound, he probably comes off as a little extra silly. But if you have, the moment when you realize what's going on is so good because as Lucas and party walk through, you're coming to the leader of the pig masks, you're going through their complex, their facility, you get to the top, which is the leader's room, and you're walking around, and it's all these items, like all this paraphernalia and random objects scattered around the room, and you can examine all the different things that are in Porky's room. You don't know it's him yet, but as you examine them, if you've played Earthbound, you can start putting together puzzle pieces and be like, wait, all of this sounds very familiar in a weird kind of way. I can't remember them exactly what they were, but there's a couple items specifically where it's very clear that he's like weirdly nostalgic for his time back in 1-ette, and like it's kind of weird. He seems to like miss Ness a little bit. In sort of a weird, creepy bully way. Later in the game, when you go to New Pork City, he's actively playing a film of Earthbound. Like the events of Earthbound, because he's just nostalgic for this time when he harassed Ness and his friends. It's bonkers. I love the reveal.
He also has kind of a museum. You get on like this boat ride in Porky's Tower, and you go through all these like exhibits of things from Earthbound, like the giant rock head dude. I can't remember his name, but you ride inside of him.
Dungeon Man.
Yeah, Dungeon Man. That's right. Yeah, there's all those things from Earthbound, and yeah, you're right. It's weird that he would remember that all so fondly and like want to like create these memories of it, but that's what's going on here.
He likes bullying people. He came to this world for the sole purpose of bullying all of its inhabitants, and that's a lot of work. So in the meantime, he's nostalgic for the time when he bullied his next door neighbor. Yeah.
His name wasn't Porky in Earthbound, it was Pokey.
It was Pokey.
And they changed it. So I was like, oh, is he a dick because his name is Porky? And people are making fun of him? I don't know.
I could be remembering this wrong. I thought his original name was Pokey, but it was Porky in the localization. And then they leaned into that, or it might have been the other way around. I don't remember. Okay, so it's Porky mentioned in Japanese. It's Pokey mentioned the English version due to a translation error. So he is supposed to be Porky.
Okay, so yeah, I was like, just because a little bit later, like, I don't know if this game wants you to feel bad for Porky or if you just want him to eat shit because he's terrible. But I mean, his name is Porky, so I feel you got to think kids are not going to be nice to him if your name's Porky. But
it's a lot of it comes, I think, with being familiar with Earthbound, right? Because if you remember, or if you know him in Earthbound, I mean, I don't think the game has lots of sympathy for him. He is sort of a stereotypical bully, but if you go visit his house, like his mom and dad kind of suck. He doesn't seem to have like the best home life. But he's also the kind of kid that just sort of, I don't know, like clearly tortures animals for fun. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I think, again, big theme in this game, hurt people. Like he himself is a person who is hurting. And also to be clear, not to be a Porky Minch sympathizer here, but yes, he did go join the alien creature Gygus and seems to have done so of his own free will. That said, Gygus was a hellish terror from space that clearly had some sort of PSI mind control abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say if Porky's descent from casual next door neighbor bully into ultimate evil villainhood was not influenced in some way by Gygus, which, by the way, was the antagonist of both the first and the second Mother games. And is not the antagonist of Mother 3, incidentally, because it has been destroyed by Mother 3. But I don't know. Maybe there's some Gygus left in there somewhere. It's not clear. But I don't know.
I was under the impression, he's a kid, and I was under the impression that he was mind controlled in Earthbound, and then, mind control and close proximity to the eldritch horror that is Gygus would be, I don't know, there should be some residual effects from that. So yeah, Porky's still a dick in Mother 3, and his whole purpose in this game is to corrupt the town, get the people to leave, to come populate his city where he's gonna, I don't know, just be a tyrant over the residents of New Pork City, to just kind of maintain his life. It is interesting that when you do finally go meet Porky in Mother 3, he's not the kid from Earthbound anymore. He's like this bedridden old man, basically on life support. When you talk with the real him and not some like projection or robot or something like that, he frequently like breaks his dialogue to cough or gasp for air. So I don't know, like even to the end in like what seems like extreme sickness or old age, he's still an asshole to everybody around him.
Yeah, it's unclear like what has happened to him in the interim between Earthbound and now. When you see him in Earthbound and he's in his little flying spaceship, he looks kind of messed up. Like his skin's a weird color. He looks like he's melting a little bit. He's kind of he's clearly, if not mind controlled, like clearly being influenced by this horrible, evil, like pure embodiment of hatred from space in some way. Yeah. And then he literally travels through time and space somehow with all this technology and alien stuff that he has to get to Tazmily. Like it doesn't seem to be, I don't know if it's the same universe or a different timeline or what the exact connection is, but there's something going on there. And so it could have been a very long period of time, or it could have been a very short period of time, and he has just like aged rapidly in some way because he does still have the demeanor of this bullying child. But like everyone else in Mother 3, despite his clear villainhood and his horrible choices, Porky Minch is going through it.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So his whole thing is he just wants everybody to assimilate and be obedient to him now. He talks about how stupid it is to do this whole like clean slate, fresh start thing. He says that no matter how much you change the rules, no matter how much you try, people will always sign their death warrant by acting out of stupidity and evil. And we've seen a little bit of that through the characters in the game, especially the ones who, like you've said many times, should be doing this instead of Lucas, but they are all so easily corrupted, so easily just, this off to the side, I got TV to watch.
Yeah.
Stuff
he
like
also
that.
performs the perfect example of this himself not long after, because when you kick his ass, He's like, well, I'm gonna be a coward and I am gonna be absolutely safe from you and you can't beat me. And he climbs to this device called the Absolutely Safe Capsule and gets inside. And the premise of this thing is that it keeps you absolutely safe from literally all danger. But as a result, he traps himself inside and nothing can hurt him, but because he's stuck in there, he can't hurt anybody else. And so it's a horrible fate. It's like one last disturbing middle finger to the universe, like trapping this messed up, evil child, old man, whatever he is, in the Absolutely Safe Capsule for eternity? ? Can he die?
Yeah,
I guess not.
It's unclear. You just leave him there as soon as he's stuck in there. I think the person who designed it was there and was like, yeah, I made this way so that if he closes it, you can't open it from the inside.
Yeah.
But then you just leave. So his fate is, well, you can imagine what's going to happen with him. Down in that place, right before you go fight Porky, you meet Flint again. He's down there. You finally reunite with your dad. And he, I guess, tried to fight against or go against Porky. And he was defeated, but he is happy because he finally found Klaus. And that's another thing we didn't talk about is starting in maybe chapter 5, it is chapter 5 on the airplane, because he's the one that kicks you off the plane when you fall down to the sunflower field. There is a mysterious masked man who's under the control of Facade who just shows up to fight you from time to time. And I knew this was Klaus like the first time he was on screen.
It's super obvious.
Yeah.
He's the same height as Lucas. Like, he's got a mask on. We know Klaus has been missing. I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah, conservation of detail. Yeah.
Clearly Klaus.
So he's introduced that way, but he's mind controlled. So he's fighting against you, and you have to go get a Franklin badge, an Earthbound item, to be immune to his lightning attacks. Nice little callback there.
The Franklin badge has been in all 3 games, and I think is the strongest piece of evidence.
Is it
that they all at least in some way exist in the same universe, or alternate versions of the same universe, like alternate timelines of some kind. Like the Franklin badge has always been created and has always had the same function.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Yeah. If there's only one. Yeah. So you have at the end here this big showdown with Klaus. There are a couple of other times when you fight Klaus and you defeat him, but he retreats. You don't have a remember me, I'm your brother type thing until the very end here. And it's a one-on-one fight. It's just Lucas versus Klaus. And I tried to do things that were not attack during this fight. I don't know if you tried this too. You do have to attack, I think, a few times, but he's attacking you. And so most of your efforts will be spent on just keeping yourself alive, because you can lose this showdown with Lucas. But during the fight, you can hear Hinawa's voice calling out to Klaus. He's so mind controlled that he doesn't recognize Lucas. Or the other theory is that he's dead and he's been reanimated, so he doesn't have the mental faculties, at least not right away, to recognize him. I don't know, but it's one of those things where he doesn't recognize you. You don't want to fight him, but he's trying to kill you. So that goes on for a little while. And then there's a part where he does this big attack, but Flint jumps in front of the attack and begs Klaus to remember who everybody is, and then talks to him about how he looked for him for so long.
Oh man, this moment got me. The moment when Flint finally clues in on his most important duty, which is to protect the son that he has.
Mm-hmm.
And it took him it took him the whole game. I'm tearing up. It took him so much. But in that moment, he's finally like, oh shit, I still have one family member left. I need to do something. And he does the right thing and he protects Lucas. It just it was good.
Yep. And it goes to a flashback right at this point where it shows when Klaus and Lucas are born. And they talk about what they hope life is going to be like for the boys. They hope that they'll be kind. They hope that they'll help each other. And that was the case until this all started, until this attack at the beginning of the game. And then during the fight, you're still fighting them. Hinawa's pleas, like the battle will pause for dialogue from Hinawa talking to Klaus, saying, please remember, I'm your mother. And Klaus, you can tell he starts to recognize it because he starts to cover his ears, close his eyes, trying to block it all out. Like there's something about this mind control or the events, I don't know, that he just doesn't want to deal with right now. So he keeps on the attack.
Another thing that I love is that this echoes Earthbound in some ways where, sorry, spoilers for Earthbound. If you haven't played it, I don't know what to tell you. The final boss battle of Earthbound, you can't really win by force alone. Maybe you can fudge it, but you really can't. The trick to winning that is Paula has an ability called Pray. And normally Pray just has kind of a random effect. Sometimes it can do damage, sometimes it can heal you. But the trick is in that battle to focus on surviving, don't bother attacking, and just pray over and over and over again. And it's such a powerful moment because it again goes back to these are very small kids fighting against a horrible, evil alien force that's going to destroy everything that they know and love. And literally all they can do, they've been like forced into these robot bodies. It's a whole mess. And literally all they can do is pray. But their prayers are heard by all of the people who they have met and helped along the way. And so Earthbound in its final moments expands. It pulls in the entire world of people and they all send their good wishes to Ness and his party and the power of everyone's love and hope for a better world and for these kids to survive defeats Gygus because he can't stand love. He's an evil force of hate. And it reminds him of this time when he was a child and felt love and he goes away. Earthbound expands in the ending is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Mother 3 does a similar thing where the way to beat the final boss battle is not to fight. Like you cannot win this by brute force. It's a terrible idea to try to kill your brother. We are not doing Cain and Abel here. But instead of expanding, it shrinks. It pulls in. It gets rid of the rest of your party. It's just Lucas and Klaus. Your weapons and your abilities don't do anything. All you can do is lean on your little family. And it goes back to the people who were there at the very beginning of the game, the people that you gave names to and the people who are the emotional core of the story. And you have to trust in those very, very small relationships. And I love it. It's really good.
Yeah. I think like the battle strategy, like if you're talking about this from a mechanical perspective, like you might hit attack a couple times just because you think you have to, but it becomes clear that that's not what you're doing. Yeah. So all I was doing was defending, trying to manage that and healing, just trying to get to the next part. So you just defend, you just take the attacks and hope that Hinawa's pleas are going to get to Klaus in
Playing
time.
Undertale before I played this really did help because I was like, okay, I've seen this before. I get it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what happens is the pleas keep coming, and they get kind of more loving as they go. Like the one that actually breaks Klaus of this is Hinawa says, Klaus, you must be so exhausted. Please come to your mother. And the music changes during this too. This is after the scene where Flint jumps in front of the attack. The music is now that lullaby version of the mother's love song during the final boss fight. Again, Klaus is a child. We don't know how old we think he is, maybe like 10 years old or something like that.
Still can't cry, by the way. We're not at the end. Can't cry till the end.
Exactly, yeah. So these desperate pleas to get this kid to remember his mother, remember his family. What happens, which I did not expect.
Oh my God, no.
He takes the mask off and he shoots a lightning attack at Lucas. But Lucas has the Franklin badge. It reflects the lightning back. Yep. And you see the message at the bottom, Klaus took mortal damage. And so what happens is he remembers everything. He goes over, he gives Lucas a hug. He apologizes. And then he says he's going to where Mom is. He apologizes again and says goodbye, and Klaus dies. And that's how this game...
I thought for sure you were going to save him.
Yeah.
The whole game, I was like, we didn't see him die. We got to go rescue him. It's going to be okay. The brothers are going to be reunited. I was not ready.
No, me either.
It's also a weird ludonarrative moment where the rolling HP meter is kind of suddenly in the background because he takes the mortal damage, and you can envision his HP meter just spinning down while he's having these lines. Oh my God. It freaking killed me, dude. I was not ready.
No, absolutely not. Because kind of like you said, why would you expect this not to have that happy ending after all the pleas? They've
been through so much they don't need anymore.
Yeah, and Hinawa's there helping. Flint is there. He helped. Lucas has been doing the best he can the entire game, and now he's really doing the best he can, just taking all this from Klaus. And then he basically, hurts himself to the point where he dies. He dies in Lucas's arms at the end.
And that's the reading of it too, that he does this attack not because he wants to hurt. He takes off the mask and then he does this attack, and he does this not because he wants to hurt Lucas, but because he knows what's going to happen, and he knows that's the only way to stop himself. That's a reading of it. I don't know that that's the correct one, but
I can see that. If he thinks that he's too far gone, basically, if he thinks that he can't be saved, then this is the only way, because maybe he sees that Lucas isn't going to do this.
Or that if he's allowed to live, then the forces that have manipulated him thus far will just continue to manipulate him. Because sort of critical to all this is the fact that the reason why they're pulling these needles, Lucas and Klaus are the only two who can do it. No one else in the world can. Facade can't do it by himself. The monkey can't. Duster can't. These two kids can. I don't remember exactly why. It has something to do with their PSI abilities. Their latent PSI abilities, probably tying them back to the civilization or something. But they're twin brothers. They're twin brothers.
Yeah, they're twins.
And so they're both able to do it. But Klaus, because he's been corrupted, has all this evil in his heart, and so he's being used. He's a child who's being used by these evil people. It's not that he himself has horrible visions of wanting to destroy the world. It's that Facade and other people do, and they want to use him for that. So it's possible he sees if this continues, he just continues to get used. Because Lucas isn't going to do this if there's no threat.
Right.
But that's maybe ascribing a lot of agency to a guy who spent the majority of the game with a mind control helmet on. So I don't know.
It's true. I mean, it's possible. And I don't know. It's hard to put a lot of this complex decision making on another actual child too. I think
9 years old, whatever.
Yeah. Making these really complex sacrifices at the end. Yeah. What I thought happened was that the pleas are getting to him, and he pulls the mask off. That's him acting his own agency. He's able to do that and look at his brother and stuff. But one final push from this mind control source caused this final attack, the one that ended up killing him. But then that gives him the agency to finally snap out of it after it's too late, but to apologize and just have one final moment with his family before he dies.
Yeah. I mean, it plays into the he's dead the whole time theory that you had, because an electric shock would, maybe revive him momentarily in that moment.
Yeah. It could also explain why he's just unable to break out of this at all, even when, his mother's pleas might be one of the more powerful things that could happen, but there's only so much they can do in either case,
Yeah.
So
anyway, I ripped my fucking heart out.
Yeah. Right when you think we were going to have a kind of happy ending, I thought Flint was going to die from the attack that he took. He did not, but we thought that the mother's love was going to conquer all, and it didn't. It was just too late for Klaus, which, again, unexpected. So Lucas goes and pulls the final needle after this, and the thing that I should have mentioned, maybe, whatever, it's the spoiler section. the thing that's going to happen when Lucas pulls the needle is the world is going to end and it's going to be reformed in the image or like reflect the purity or corruption of the person who pulls the needles and awakes the dragon. So Lucas, pure of heart, is going to pull the needle. The world's going to be destroyed, but it's going to be reborn as a good world, a just world. And that happens. You get to see, after the needle is pulled, earthquakes and tornadoes and fires and volcanoes and meteors and shit. Like, it is the actual end of the world. And then the screen goes blank and you, I don't remember if the credits roll here or after the thing that comes next.
I thought they rolled here, but it's been a year since I've played. I think part of them roll here. I don't remember. It's been a while. But you're very much given the impression that this is just the end of the game. That it's just everything's been destroyed. We don't really know what happened to any of them. Did they survive? And it's just like this blank screen. But you seem to have some ability to control what's going on.
Yeah, the screen says end with a question mark, and it just stays there. And I wonder how many people just shut the game off because they think it's over. But you can actually move around in this screen. And then
you can't see your character, but you can, like, the sound and the way that the screen, you can tell that somebody's moving in the darkness. Yeah.
So it was this ambiguous ending. Like, I thought I was just going to be left to be like, okay, well, I hope everything worked out. But then they give you this post thing to show you.
So good. It's the video game victory lap. It's Ness walking Paula home. It's the Undertale you saved everybody victory tour. It's so good. Mm-hmm. And Lucas talks to you. Lucas addresses the player, which is he's a silent protagonist for the game. Like, he doesn't speak, but he turns to the camera and, well, in the darkness, and says, "Hey, like, don't worry, you did it."
Yeah. "Hey, Dave, I'm happy you're okay." That's what he says.
Yeah.
They say it's a miracle, and they thank you, the player, for everything. And they say that everything's going to be okay in their world. And the world is being reborn. And you have like a credits roll where the family is reunited in the credits. So maybe in this new version of the world, the family will be together if that's the way that this rebirth of the world works. It's never explained. It's just up to you to, wonder if that's how it's gonna be.
It's the Lucas telling you that everything's going to be okay is, like, I think a really powerful moment after everything that you've just seen, because you do, in spite of everything that he's just been through, there's the recognition that he now does have the things that he needs. He has closure on what happened to his brother. He has reassurance of their love. His dad has figured out his duty to his child and has reassured Lucas of his love for him as well. He can kind of go back to being a kid. Maybe a kid who's got a lot to process. Yeah. But he has the space to process it now. Like,
or maybe this is going to be reborn. The world is going to be reborn in a familiar way so that they get another start as a family, and then without fucking Porky coming in and messing everything up, they will actually get to live their lives as they hoped as a family.
Yeah, it is true, because none of this was a freak accident. All of this did happen because of Porky Minch. Like, he showed up and corrupted the dinosaurs, and that's how everything happened with Hinawa and the fires. So none of this would have happened if not for Porky freaking Minch.
Mm-hmm. So, final thing here. At the end of the staff credits, you see Hinawa set a bird free to fly. Just a little ending scene there. And then the Mother 3 logo changes on the main menu screen. The whole game, the menu, or the logo that says Mother 3, was made of wood and metal together. This kind of unholy mishmash of two incompatible things. And then after the credits roll, the Mother 3 logo is all made of wood. So the world is free of the corruption, starting fresh.
So the moral of the story is go outside. Got it.
Stop playing video games and doing 2-hour and 40-minute podcasts.
I told you I talk a lot.
I talk a lot too. You should, I recently just finished editing my 4-hour Baldur's Gate 3 podcast.
Oh, so Godspeed. That's a long game.
Yep. Anyway, Mother 3's got a lot going on.
Oh my God. We didn't even talk about it all. I'm not going to drag us back to anything in particular, but we skipped giant chunks of it. The plot has so much going on. Oh my God. It's a 25-hour game. It's not that long.
Yep. But there's so much to talk about. Like you said, we really stuck to those main themes of the corruption, the grief, the way that people treat each other, like you said, and it was a good observation, the way that the burden of saving the world is placed on arguably like the 4 people or 3 people and a dog that should not have to bear that, while everyone else just watches TV or, goes hangs out in the dance or the club outside the factory or whatever they're doing.
Or is forced to work in the weird golem mines or trapped in the nursing home. Again, things we didn't even get to. We didn't even talk about the weird golem mines and we barely touched on the club. There's a whole segment where you drive a truck around.
Yes. Yeah, but there's a lot to discuss. I'm happy with the way we discussed those things that we got to. So thank you so much for taking all of this time and talking about Mother 3 with me. I
felt cathartic. I played this game and I didn't have anybody to really share it with because, again, like so few people like in the US have actually played it because of the inavailability, or they played it a long time ago. So everybody go check out that fan translation of Mother 3. It's genuinely phenomenal, and even if it's not exactly the author's intent, I have no idea. I can't speak Japanese. It's a damn good game.
Yeah, if it wasn't a good fan translation, we wouldn't have gotten this much discussion out of it. So again, I will echo the recommendation to go check that out. And if there is another game that you need to deep dive and just get out of your system, you're always welcome back on this podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'll give a call at the end of the episode for everybody to go check out Reb's writing, journalism, and go support that IGN union and pay attention to everything that she's got coming out. You'll find links down in the show notes for all of those things. And as always, tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.